construction processes deployed do not compromise on standard quality protocols. With this background, the First Construction Council is organizing the Make in Steel Forum 2021 in association with Construction World magazine. The conference today will include 4 sessions focusing on the government's vision, innovation in steel, growth in stainless steel, and re-engineering. This is not just it. The conference will be followed by the Make in Steel Awards that will recognize and reward India's fastest growing steel companies. Ladies and gentlemen, as we go ahead, we would like to welcome our partners. The Make in Steel Forum 2021 is powered by Tata Tiscon, Platinum Partner, Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Gold Partner, Sham Steel, Supporting Partners, Indian Steel Association, National Highways Builders Federation, Indian Stainless Steel Development Association, and Ready Mix Concrete Manufacturers Association. Media partners, Construction World, Infrastructure Today, and Equipment India. The Make in Steel Forum 2021 is organized by the First Construction Council. Introducing you to the board, to the members of the board of the First Construction Council, we have all the top-notch from the industry: architect Hafiz Contractor, Mr. D.K. Sen, Mr. Pradeep Singh, Mr. Sandeep Singh, Mr. Sanjay Seth, Mr. Subodh Dikshit, and Mr. Sumit Banerjee. A brief into Construction World, 24 years in the running, largest circulated construction magazine delivering the most authentic, trusted, up-to-date and timely information about the construction business, spread across 800 cities in India and overseas. That is not just it. I have numbers that could take you back with your eyes wide open. Our audience profile comprises the entire gamut of the construction industry, from EPC and engineering companies, manufacturers and suppliers, architects, builders, engineers, contractors, consulting engineers, interior designers, government bureaucrats, and financial institutes and investors. Over the years, we have developed our digital platform and reach as well, which the numbers speak louder than words. You've seen how we have widened our reach. Unique visitors, more than 218,000. Our social reach on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram, we haven't left a single stone unturned. Our traffic by geography, we're not just limited to India. We also have our wings spread across the world in countries like Singapore, the USA, UK, Norway, Germany, China, Netherlands, UAE, Australia, and the list continues. See, wow, most of you would be familiar with this Construction World on WhatsApp. Yes, we are there right for you to give you daily updates. All you need to do is connect with us once with a missed call. The number is on your screen, or to make it easier, I have a QR code as well. You could just have that scanned and you would join us on our subscribers, which is already more than 11,000. 865-758-1178 is the number for your missed call to go to be part of our CBOW community. Also, do check out CW Gold. Simple, log on to gold.constructionworld.in. While we do have Construction World as a monthly magazine that has reached out to all of you, CW Gold gives you complete exposure to weekly updates, financial analysis across sectors: construction, infrastructure, equipment, cement, and a lot more. Here we come up with great subscription offers. Like you see, it's not just Construction World, but we bring for you a package of magazines: Industrial Product Finder, IPF, Equipment India, Cement Review, and the Textile Journal. So do avail our recent subscription offers. I've given a contact at the bottom of the screen, subscriber@asapinfoglobal.com. Do write into us. And yes, we are India's largest circulated construction business magazine. All our team details are offered to you on the screen. You could take a screenshot so that you could connect with us to benefit from all the services and information that we offer. And our upcoming events, while today we have a huge lineup of events, it's a full day thing, but our upcoming events is also something that you want to look out for and you do not want to miss. Join us on February 25th, 6 to 7:30 p.m. for our webinar on the road to prosperity, vision for highways and expressways in India. This is part of our Infra Nirbhar series, and I am delighted to announce that Mr. Nitin Gadkari, the Union Minister for Road Transport and Highways and the Minister for Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises, is our keynote speaker. Do not wait for the session to end. I have again provided a QR code right here for you to scan it immediately and have yourself registered for this session, which is tomorrow. Moving on to our next event in the pipeline, again part of the Infra Nirbhar series, building smart and sustainable urban infrastructure, scheduled for March 3rd from 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. The QR code is again available for you. And once again, I'm delighted to introduce you to our keynote speaker on March 3rd, Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, Principal Economic Advisor, Government of India. We look forward to seeing you there. This is not just it. We have the 11th Cement Expo Plus online. It's scheduled for 17th March. It's a virtual event which would comprise two main segments, which is the 6th Indian Cement Review Conference 2021 and the 4th Indian Cement Review Awards 2021. What are you waiting for? Register right now. Once again, we have the QR code available for you over here, and we look forward to seeing all of you join us at our upcoming events as well. Yes, so Make in Steel Forum 2021 is organized by the First Construction Council, our promoted non-profit trust, which works as an infrastructure think tank, raising awareness about the best practices which need to be followed to ensure the best standards for the industry. The council also engages in researching information and ranking construction and infrastructure companies under the leadership and vision of our founder and president, Mr. Pratap Padode. Before I call upon Mr. Pratap Padode to welcome the virtual gathering and to tell us more about the Make in Steel Forum, a few words about him. A trailblazer who first blazed a trail in financial journalism with his chartered accountancy background, he turned to addressing the needs of the construction, infrastructure, and manufacturing sectors through ASAP Info Global Group, set up in 1999. Since then, he has spearheaded India's enthusiasm for smart cities through the Smart Cities Council India, which was set up in 2014. He now lobbies for policy changes as the founder and president of the First Construction Council. Recipient of the Asian Multimedia Publishing Awards and the CIDC Vishwakarma Awards as the best journalist, as head of the First Construction Council, he has campaigned for steel quality, for emission norms for construction equipment, for changes in the Municipal Act, and for changes in the land acquisition policy. He continues to infuse his enthusiasm in building India into a powerful nation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Pratap Padode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Make in Steel Forum 2021. Trust all of you are safe and healthy. The First Construction Council has been taking steps to enhance the best practices in construction and infrastructure. Along with Construction World, we have initiated a series called Infra Nirbhar, obviously based upon Atmanirbhar, coined by our very own Prime Minister. Our last two webinars conducted with Minister of State for Housing and Urban Affairs and Aviation, Honorable Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, and Secretary in Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, Dr. T.V. Somanathan, reveal that India is set for a huge infrastructure spend. India's infrastructure investment for fiscals between 2014 and 19, with center contributing 30% and the state government contributing 41%, spent nearly 10.2 trillion and 10 trillion for 18 and 19, respectively. But now, for the 5 years ahead, based upon the national infrastructure pipeline of 111 trillion, they are supposed to spend nearly 75% or even more. I think the private sector is supposed to contribute 22%, while between the center and state, which is 40% and 39%. So a huge round of investments of projects is round the corner from the state and the center. The jump in 21-22 is a huge 7 trillion in spending, nearly 21.5 trillion is supposed to be spent. So you can see that in 18 and 19, we spent around 10.2 trillion and 10 trillion. But what we are talking about in 21-22 is 21.5 trillion. And when I was inquiring about the provision for this expense with our Secretary Expenditure, he said that most of it has been accounted for. And obviously the government is now looking at two key sources for revenue. One being the asset monetization and the other being the disinvestment. Both of these obviously have their challenges, but they are certain, they are quite confident that they would be able to raise the funds for this. Already a whole lot of asset monetization program has already been launched with InvITs. And so we can see that having recognized this gap in funding, in financing infrastructure, the government is already moving quite quickly. On other fronts in infrastructure, like metro rail and bullet train, the government has already got multilateral funding. And so pretty much the funds are secure with a 30-year or a 50-year loan. And so therefore, these projects are really moving at a great speed. On the road front as well, there has been very good interest from the private sector. And so even that plan is up to speed. Projects worth 44 trillion out of this 110 trillion of national infrastructure pipeline are already under execution. But the real opportunity lies in the 66 trillion, which are at various stages of conceptualization. The government, of course, has planned even a development finance institution, among other traditional sources of revenue, to raise funds for this. Now, 47% of this 111 trillion spend will use steel directly, like 18% of this 111 trillion is going to be spent on roads, 12% in railways, and 17% in urban infrastructure. So as you can see, I think the plan for the next 5 years for consumption of steel is on an upward gradient. Today's conference, Make in Steel Forum 2021, the theme is Steel Sustainability and Resilience for a Post-COVID Society. COVID has been a shock. It has shocked the system, shocked the world, and we have just put our first steps in recovery. And what a recovery we can see. I think the resilience of the sector, not only post opening of the lockdown, many companies, some of the companies you will probably find in this conference itself, like Jindal Steel, Tata Steel, they have all utilized this opportunity to even pick up their revenues out of exports during the lockdown period. So our Indian industry has been pretty resilient. And therefore, the need to be quality conscious now is even more greater. In fact, our last year conference theme centered around quality standards to uphold sustainable infrastructure. And today, our conference has 4 sessions: vision, innovation in steel, growth in stainless steel, and re-engineering. And the conference is followed by Make in Steel Awards. While we spend 111 trillion on infrastructure, we need to be mindful that quality standards are intact. The recent statement by our Minister of Roads, Transport and Highways, Shri Nitin Gadkari, has raised concerns among steel stakeholders. The minister has given a guideline that in order to enhance supplies and to contain the price rise, TMT steel bars could be sourced from secondary producers too for national highway projects. In fact, the statement from the ministry says whether produced from ore, billets, pellets, or melting of scrap would be allowed to be used for national highway construction as long as, this is important, as long as it meets the standards required for specific grades of steel. We will be making and seeking clarifications from the minister tomorrow during our webinar on Infra Nirbhar on roads. It is at 6 p.m. So do register. I think Shreyal just gave you that creative, and maybe sometime later during this or at the end, we will again flash that slide to you. So do register for that. So you'll have a first-hand clarification from the minister on this. In the budget for 21-22, apart from the emphasis on infrastructure, steel imports were made easier by lowering of customs duty on a range of products. And duty exemption was granted on import of steel scrap used by secondary steel makers. Here is where the TMT preliminary report that we released today will be even more meaningful, as these will guide buyers to navigate amongst those who stand for quality and trust and those who don't. Our preliminary report is the result of procurement of samples and having tested them at an approved laboratory. The report will be available for a free download on firstconstructioncouncil.com. With 45% of our production coming from secondary steel producers, acquiring the right quality would be key as we continue to invest in infrastructure. The conference sessions will come to a close with the giving away of the awards to India's fastest growing steel companies. These companies are selected on the basis of 6 years of annual financial results, where we see performance of growth in sales and in profits after tax on an year-on-year basis, where we provide higher weightage to the most recent years. This way, we are giving importance both to sales and to profitability, and thereby we come up with the list of the fastest growing steel companies and we award them. I thank all the sponsors for supporting us and participating in our testing and the report and this event, and in helping us continue the tradition of Make in Steel. And I welcome you once again to have an engaging day ahead. Now we will launch the preliminary TMT Steel report. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Mr. Padode. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time to unveil the TMT Report 2021. During tough times, people make a lot of compromises. These compromises can cost a house or an infrastructure project dearly in the long run. Quality control is one of the largest contributors to a robust brand. Those brands that do not make compromises are the ones consumers should stick with to ensure the quality of their project. The brands tested here have shown in tough times that their quality control remains a top priority for them. Those brands that could maintain their high quality standards have prospered through this tough year as trust became an important issue for buyers. The TMT Report 2021 hopes to bring clarity on the ground of the infrastructure sector and credible TMT providers whose products have been tested by a government-approved testing center. Buyers of TMT should use this report as a guide for how to evaluate TMT rebars and make informed business decisions through the knowledge shared within the report. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to virtually launch the TMT Report 2021. As Mr. Padode mentioned, this is the preliminary report and the final report will be released in 2 weeks. Well, we all are going to be eager to have the report with us in the next 2 weeks. Introducing you from here to the first session for today at the Make in Steel Forum 2021. The Government of India has laid out its vision to meet the anticipated demand of 160 million tons of steel for becoming a $5 trillion economy through a competitive, efficient, environment-friendly steel industry adhering to global safety and quality standards. This vision entails investments worth 100 trillion rupees in the infrastructure sectors, including several steel-intensive sectors such as housing for all, 100% electrification, and piped water for all. So how can this vision be achieved? Steel has several inherent advantages of durability, faster completion time, reduced environmental impact, and creation of a circular economy. But how can steel play a crucial role in India's rise to a $5 trillion economy? What could the challenges be, and how can the steel fraternity overcome these together? If these are your questions, then this panel discussion is for you. I would now like to welcome the session moderator and panelist with a brief introduction. Please welcome our moderator, not only for this session, but for the day, Dr. Shushmita Das Gupta, former Joint Chief Economist, Joint Plant Committee, Ministry of Steel. Dr. Das Gupta has retired in her employment as the Joint Chief Economist with the Economic Research Unit, Joint Plant Committee, Ministry of Steel, after having put in 34 years of service in steel policy matters. At present, she is promoting efforts in the steel industry towards making it sharper and more skilled through her own endeavor, a think tank, and by partnering with industry associations, research bodies, training companies, metallurgical consulting companies, and other outfits to promote the intensification of steel use in the country. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Das Gupta. I now move on to introducing and welcoming our panelists who would be joining Dr. Das Gupta for this discussion. Please welcome Mr. V.R. Sharma, Managing Director, Jindal Steel and Power. Mr. Vidya Ratan Sharma is a leading technocrat with more than 37 years of experience in steel, power, cement, and the mining industry. He joined JSPL in June 2019. During his tenure, JSPL has shown excellent performance on all fronts. This includes an impressive high production and sales turnover during the COVID-19 induced economically challenging period. Next, please welcome Mr. Alikesh Roy, Managing Director, Zamil Steel Buildings India. Mr. Roy has over 30 years of rich and varied experience across various industry segments, having started his professional career with Tata Motors. He has also worked at various senior and top management positions, and in his earlier assignments has managed 2 greenfield startups in different geographies and has also been instrumental in launching and brand building of several concept products. Joining us also is Mr. Alan Lagrix, Director and Vice President, Sales and Marketing, AMNS India, and Vice President at ArcelorMittal. Mr. Alan joined ArcelorMittal in 1985 and has held various leadership roles across the group. In his most recent role, prior to joining AMNS India, he was appointed Head of Business Transformation at ArcelorMittal Europe Flat Products. And please also welcome Mr. Satyajit Maiti, Chief of Marketing, B2C Business, Tata Steel. Mr. Maiti has over 20 years of work experience with Tata Steel. In his current role, he heads the marketing function of the B2C business. Some of his specialities include marketing strategy, brand building, channel sale, business process analysis, and business process re-engineering. Thank you all for joining us today. I now request Dr. Das Gupta to take this discussion forward. You have 40 minutes for the discussion, and we look forward to an engaging one. Over to you from here.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you for your nice introduction and the kind words for all of us. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Nonetheless, notwithstanding that it is on the web, but at least we are getting to see one another again after a long time of being cut off, even cut up with our circumstances. And I welcome all the panelists. Shreya has done a lot of work for me. But yes, welcome to this panel discussion. We are, one of the best ways to overcome the despair of the present times is to think nicely about the future and plan with a lot of gusto. I see that infrastructure is definitely going to lead the Indian steel industry and the steel demand in the coming times, if it's not already doing that. But such very large outlays in the infrastructure sector means that we do not only have larger monies, but we must be having much mightier structures and wider spans. And that is exactly what we have to, prepare ourselves for. What kind of products are we making? What kind of new dimensions are we doing? Are we producing different kinds of sections? Are we having different metallurgy? And how are we getting prepared to produce those out of our mills? How do we transport those? So these are basically the questions and answers to which I would like to hear from you. And I'm sure that the audience would. Somebody's asking me to start the video. Okay. So I'm sure that the audience would also like to know from you. So the first speaker of the panel would be Mr. V.R. Sharma. He's the Chief Executive Officer of JSPL. And in the Indian steel industry, we often joke that, you follow Mr. V.R. Sharma to follow where the steel industry is going, which means that if he is focusing on infrastructure, infrastructure must be the growth story. If he is focusing on JSPL, JSPL must be making the same, the desired and required steel sections. So, Mr. V.R. Sharma, just 1 minute, Shriyal, how much time do we have for each panelist?
This session, you have 40 minutes for your overall session. So
10 minutes for each. Yes, Mr. Sharma.
Thank you and good afternoon, Dr. Dasgupta and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak on the infrastructure today, which is a very favorite subject, very close to heart. And first of all, I'd like to thank Government of India and Ministry of Finance for allocating a huge sum of funds to give a big boost to the infrastructure industry in the country. As you all know that more than 60% of the steel consumption comes through government-supported or government-funded infrastructure projects. Rightly said by Mr. Padode that out of 110 trillion, so we are going to spend about 38% directly on the government-supported projects and government projects, I would say, and around 24% with the support of the government. So put together is about 62%, which is going to come in next 5 years' time in the kitty of steel industry and the construction industry as a whole. So steel, as we all know, that we have a very ambitious plan to reach to 300 million ton in next 9 years' time, because 10th year is going to be the full of 300 million. We are already in 2021. So this means we have to grow in a very professional manner, and the growth should be more than 10% on year-on-year basis on the production front as well as on the consumption front. Consumption, I'm sure this will be done, but production, I'm still doubtful whether India can reach to 300 million ton. We have given a couple of suggestions to Government of India to support the steel industry. One, that is to install or to bring a Infrastructure Development Financial Corporation of India, and that some corporation or bank, the Infrastructure Financial Bank, that should be in place. Though Ministry of Finance has come out with 20,000 crore support in terms of overall capital infusion through a banking channel, but I think it is too less, because the total investment will be more than 15 lakh crore. So the overall, the greenfield as well as the brownfield projects are to be supported in different way. The tax soaps or tax benefits to the people, those who are going to expand on brownfield, should also be equal to the people, those who are going to put up the greenfield projects. I would rather say that the brownfield project should be preferred, because the overall, the burden on ecosystem will be less if the expansions are done on brownfield projects. The other is we have to keep on upgrading the technology. As we all know that the world is heading towards to hydrogen-based energy technology, and we must work on this, that as to how we can bring hydrogen as a main media to produce steel. I think the time will come very, very shortly. Prototype, some of the blast furnaces and some of the DRI plants are already installed in the world. And these will be at their peak capacity maybe by 2025. So we have good time, 3 to 4 years as a gestation time to absorb the technology and to find out as to how we can produce hydrogen. So God has given a big gift to us. We have one of the largest reserves of the coal. So we must convert all this coal into coal to gas and gas to hydrogen, coal to gas and gas to SNG, coal to gas and gas to synthesis gas. That will be a game changer in the country. In JSPL, we have already installed a coal to gas and gas to DRI manufacturing, and finally take it to electric arc furnace and we manufacture steel. And similarly, so these projects are to be implemented horizontally in the country. Coal gasification through underground gasification as well as on the surface gasification, and with coal bed methane technology that should be supported as suggested by Honorable Prime Minister when he was speaking with some of the journalists in US 2 years back. So these are to be taken forward. JSPL is already on this particular dream, and we have driven a big campaign so that we can produce gas-based DRI, and gas is through coal. The other area is we have a lot of induction furnaces in the country. Unfortunately, they are very small, and many a times they are not in a position to upgrade themselves to put up the ladle refining furnace and to put up the oxygen plant. So I would suggest Government of India and Finance Minister that they should devise a methodology that we should phase out all of these induction furnaces in next 3 to 4 years time, unless they either convert into electric arc furnace or they put up the ladle refining furnace with oxygen plants. Now, how to phase out them or how to upgrade or graduate them? That is a big question. So this is where we need government support, because these are the MSMEs and the small entrepreneurs who have put up these plants. So we must give them cash subsidies. We must give them full support. We must give them easy loans so that they can graduate to either electric arc furnaces. If not, then at least they should be in a position to add the ladle refining furnaces as well as the oxygen plants. So if they can do that, that will be a great service to the nation. Of course, their overall quantity today is pretty high. About 40% of the steel is being produced today in the country through the induction furnaces. So China has already stopped induction furnaces for the manufacturing of TMT, rebars, or the structural steel. India will also graduate to that level, maybe in 2023 to 2025. But, it is a very sensitive issue because a lot of people are involved in these companies. A lot of employment is there. So to support these people, the Government of India should come with a very easy loan system or with a overall subsidy system so that all of them, they can graduate to electric arc furnace producers, the steel producers to the electric arc furnace route, and not through the induction furnaces, where it is very difficult, or I would say impossible, to control the chemistry of the steel, what they are producing today. We need the best quality of steel. We need a strong steel which can build a strong nation. We do not want disasters, through natural disasters or whatever. We need a very, very good, excellent quality of steel required in the tropical requirements or seismic requirement of this country. And this is how we should do. So the balance is about 160 million ton today, the installed capacities versus our target in India. So this all 160 million ton in times to come should come either through the electric arc furnace routes or through the blast furnace and BOF route. So that's all from my side. We will listen to the other panelists, and in case of any question or anything you want to ask me, I'll be available to the team. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. We all know that JSPL has a huge range, a complete range of special steels production. And I'm sure that this is one area you're going to focus a lot in. Thank you so much. And we really congratulate you for coal gasification, for bringing in a new age in the country in terms of technology. And I'm sure that we'll come to you in the question answer session.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, our next speaker is Mr. Alokesh Roy. And I think that I have seen him in conferences earlier, but now I think I see him in his new avatar of Zamil Steel. how do you, Mr. Rai, being an Indian and an insider, and now involved in Zamil Steel Vietnam, how do you really compare Vietnam's position and India in terms of the questions we are addressing, new kinds of steel and new kinds of steel and new sections, new dimensions, new compositions? We are very eager to hear from you, Mr. Roy.
Okay, so good afternoon to all the panelists and good afternoon to all the people present. And let me first thank Mr. V.R. Sharma for giving the introductory note. And I think one of his pet subjects is also now getting political vibration, is that one nation, one grid, one electricity tariff. So that will also augment the steel production across India. But what I'd like to answer your question, Dr. Dasgupta, in the second half. In the first half, I'd like to answer on what Mr. Sharma has built up. See, we are talking about production of steel and ramping up to 300 million tons, and we are aiming for a 5 trillion economy. But if you ask me, this is all on the supply side. On the demand side, I think much has to be answered and long-term policy has to be developed. And the consumption theory is something which we need to actually take up with the government. It is the consumption which will drive the demand, not otherwise. We can produce more, but you cannot sell. And in fact, that is where we have also in a different forum also spoken with the Chief Economic Advisor Government of India that PLI is the production linked incentive, and how it shapes up in the long term needs to be seen. I can produce more, but do I have the market to sell? Now, if you look at the way the consumption after the COVID situation has gone by, my personal philosophy is that we are living on a steroid. You see growth and surges in growth, but whether it is sustainable is in the question. So why you need road when you don't need cars, when you don't need to travel? So why you need factory? So there are many such long-term plans and answers to be sought before actually embarking on a journey, which is a 5 trillion. And let me tell you that our manufacturing contribution, where we represent, is only 16% of the GDP. So in order to make it a 5 trillion economy, our manufacturing contribution to GDP has to go up to 25%. Now, these are all statistics, and this cannot come through only consumption in the domestic sector. This I have told you in many forums. Many government officials were there, including the additional secretaries were there. So if we have to grow, we need to export. And that is where my comparison, and I am heading as a MD of Zamil Steel in India and also the General Director in Zamil Steel Vietnam. I see a story which is a successful one in Vietnam, where the 50% of the GDP is through exports only. Now, that is the story to be replicated in India, howsoever good your economy, domestic consumption might be, but you have to play a global. If you have to be in the global leader in a $5 trillion economy, you look at the top 3 economies or the top 5 economies, although we are now in the top 5, but we are the only exception where our GDP growth has been through domestic consumption. So if our GDP growth has to grow to a level of 5 trillion, we'll have to focus on exports. Now, having said that, I'm sure the other panelists will also focus on the same. And where I see exports, now, when we are talking of exports, how can we not export to Africa and China export to Africa and still remain competitive? How can from state markets, we are exporting to the Americas, both South and North. My company exports to all the North American, European, but from India, we are not viable. Simply because our input costs are high. Whatsoever may be the dollar parity rate and the dollar rates are there, those are all there. This is there for any country. But at the end of the day, our cost of production is more, not because our labor is costly. Electricity rates, what is more is the other cost of business. So when you calculate the total cost, we find that India is somewhere missing out on the total cost front rather than on a specific front. Now, when we talk about consumption story, if you look at even with a growth rate of say 7 to 8%, I don't think the steel industry can grow more than the GDP. If it grows actually, then it will be a real pleasure for all of us. In the past also, we have seen automotive industry growing at twice the rate of the GDP, but then you see what it affects to the system, that the demands become so cyclical that putting up capacities and augmenting to future capacities becomes a risky venture. And another thing before signing off, I'd like to say in certain times when we were fresh from colleges and in the starting of a career, we heard the topic that it is the early mover who gets the advantage. Today, I am finding it is the late mover who has all the advantage. So whether we have to really invest in a technology which will last, and I don't know which technology lasts for more than 5 to 7 years today, is another challenge. So the funding, financing, and recovering all the funding and financing becomes a real issue. On the conversion front, with the area where we are in, I'd like to specify that what has happened to the steel market in the last 6 months is not good for the business in the overall run. I am not saying that the prices are high or low. What I am saying is that this instability in prices is actually hampering the growth. You see today government projects are not moving, whatever the government might say, simply because if you see between the lowest price point and the now price point, the steel has gone up by almost 55% to 60% higher. Now with that price point, even if I don't execute the project, I lose 5% as LD or some kind of bank guarantee. So is it really sustainable, this kind of fluctuations? I am not a socialist. I do not also support the socialistic kind of mindset, but then sometimes the market-driven forces may not be good for the growth in the long run. Over to you, Dr. Dasgupta.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rai. I was just thinking as I was listening to you that I think that, we should really make a calculation, a cost calculation of cost of exports. I think that our transaction cost of exports is very, very high. And I'm still unable to find out, exactly at which points the cost of exports are going up. So I think that this is a very important matter to decide. And you are very right that it's not really the item-wise cost, but the overall cost that is making Indian steel uncompetitive. And if a country like Vietnam can achieve so much of, global spread with its products, I'm sure that India would do well to have a global, global target. And that global target will also help us tide over crisis when the domestic demand dips. I think your points are very, very well taken. And I'm sure that we'll have more thinking in the question answer session and even beyond the webinar. Welcome, Mr. Alec Legre, and I'm sure that I can't pronounce your name very well, but we are looking forward, in fact, to hearing you, because I think that you're not too familiar with the Indian market. So I think that the newness of the encounter, how does it leave you? What is your experience with this encounter with the Indian market? Yes, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and namaste. So I came to India in December 2019, and since then, India, in fact, never stops to amaze me. Everywhere I look, there is a tremendous potential for growth, which is very unique. In many parts of the world, countries are struggling to think what to do to drive growth, when in India, it is in fact natural. So I think that it should be the collective responsibility of both government and the private sector to convert this potential into actual growth. And I have no doubt, in fact, that it will happen. So about steel industry, I think that India has to develop further its attractiveness for industry and investment. The India steel industry needs to demonstrate its ability to supply all the product range, all the specialties, in fact, to cover all the range of needs. I think that we are too often considering India as a producer of commodities, but this is not totally really true. I am astonished, in fact, to see what has been done and what is, in fact, the ability of a plant like AMNS Azira. I speak versus what I have seen. Ability to develop and propose, in fact, new grades to the market. We know, in fact, what are our weaknesses, what are the gaps in terms of product offer, and of course, we are working hard to address those. So our capability in terms of new grades will be, of course, boosted by the support of our two mother companies. But the steel industry in India knows perfectly what are the products which are missing, what are the challenges to substitute imports. All this is perfectly known, and it's now a matter of speed for implementation. So I will say that the role of the steel industry is to support customer by bringing all steel solution. I fully agree with what was said earlier. The topic is not so much the capacity, the topic is the demand. The role of the steel industry is to accelerate and boost the promotion of steel, mostly in the construction segment, by some common and by also some individual initiative from us. The role of the steel industry is, of course, to be competitive in terms of full product range, in terms of global cost for our customers, to support them to go after projects in India, but also on export. And export, I fully also agree with what was said earlier. Export is a key topic. So the role of steel industry is also, as said earlier, to support the MSME. So in AMNS, our focus, of course, is about all of this. We are domestic focused, but we are looking to develop our steel solution by transferring all the best practice from ArcelorMittal and Nippon Steel. So when we take, for instance, to achieve the 300 million ton capacity, this means roughly 10% growth per year in terms of capacity, or roughly 22 million ton additional capacity every year. But the topic is really the demand. We have a target which has been fixed by the National Steel Policy of 200 million ton domestic, and this represents roughly 9% per year. And when you see all the current announcements on projects, we can say that the commitment of the Indian steel industry for growth is there. On AMNS, our vision for growth is clear. And I also think that the PLI, as said earlier, it's really a very good, very strong support for all of us. So when I compare with the other countries, India steel per capita, as we know, the consumption is very low, and there is a lot of scope here. 60% of the domestic demand in steel is coming from the construction and infra. Construction in India, it was my first astonishment when I came in India, in fact. The construction in India means concrete. It's not a fight against concrete, but steel is completely underutilized. The residential towers are all in concrete. And this is mostly due to the fire constraints. But when you compare with other countries, there is no reason why we should not be able to build with steel. Change for steel here could happen. It happened, in fact, in India with the warehouse or the e-commerce warehouses or the airport where steel is used, but not yet in building. Not yet with commercial building or data center, for instance. Not yet, but this will take time, of course, in the residential houses. Just to give another example, in India, for instance, I'm astonished also to see that there is no sheet piles. We don't use sheet piles. The primary usage of sheet piles is for seawater project, for port project, for flood protection, for bridges. And the obstacle in India, in fact, is linked to the know-how regarding installation. How to do the installation, what equipment is required. So just to conclude, I think that there are tremendous growth opportunities for steel consumption in India with infra and construction. And this will require, I think, much more work in terms of promotion, in terms of lobbying, in order to develop the know about steel, but also how to use steel, why if you take, for instance, UK in construction and building, 70% is built, 70% with steel. In Germany, 40%. Why UK is like that? It's because they have the network of fabricators and PEB able to produce and to build in steel. So they are always behind some explanation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alain. I'm extremely happy that you made these kinds of observations, because these were exactly the observations which I think we have been making as far as I was in service for the last 34 years. The portion of steel used in India is very low, and steel construction means mainly concrete. There is not only a weakness, which we have to sort of admit, between steel producers and the designers and the fabricators. But there has also been a lot of deficiency as far as the architectural design is concerned. Because steel buildings, we have spent very little in terms of design input in the steel. That is why architects fight shy, contractors fight shy. We have very low development of skills, and we have an absence of retailing of steel which can be put together by screws, cut to length, do it yourself kind of sections. And I thought that these were very important things which needed to pick up, for which the industry also must spend some money for the promotion, and we must lobby even harder. Our sister organizations like INSDAG, NIST, and the JPC should be very much more active than it has already been active. And with these, I am sure that we can raise the per capita steel consumption in the country. So institutional mechanisms must also be put in place in order to push more and more steel into construction. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Allen. And now we have Satyajit Maiti from Tata Steel. And I welcome Mr. Maiti. And I'm sure that, you'll have a lot to say, because Tata Steel has now a new range of products in terms of nesting, which uses a lot of steel in terms of steel structures, light gauge frame structures. Is Mr. Maiti here? Mr. Maiti is not.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Mr. Maiti. Yes. Your presentation, please.
Yeah, so thank you, Madam Dasgupta. It's a wonderful session. And first of all, I'd like to thank First Council for bringing up this forum, that Make in Steel forum, and the kind of topic we're discussing is quite interesting. A lot of insights are coming out, and Mr. Alain just now added a few more insights. And I'll also talk about that aspect going forward. So if you look at construction sector, yes, because of pandemic, this year was not a good year, and this has taken us back to FY17 level. However, we see the next year, whatever the projections are coming up is very, very positive. Around 30 to 35% construction capex is likely to grow. Building construction is likely to go almost 60%. And if you look forward, the CAGR rate for next 5 years, and all this aspect, that construction, capex, infrastructure, building construction, industrial, all will going to go up by 4 to 6%. So some of the data, if you look at, that it is also reflecting in April to November data. If you look at the bitumen consumption has increased by 2%. And national highway, that is increased by 4%. Rural road construction increased by 27%. And rural Manrega program, which is also helps construction, that has also gone up. It's predominantly supported by roads, power, railway, urban infrastructure, and irrigation. All are going to grow up almost 4 to 7% at CAGR rate, and 50 to 20% if you consider standalone next year. So that's a good story going forward. Let's hope for the best. So I was quite intrigued with the discussion going on. I thought I should also add a few more data points here just to understand where we are. If you look at our housing and construction segment, the PMOI urban, we are only at 35% compliance. The 108 lakhs houses was sanctioned, but till date we have only constructed 38 lakhs, which is 35%. So once we look at rural, and that is PMI Grameen, they are also 53% compliance. So there's a lot more to do. If you look at the census, the census data, our 55% houses in India, we have around 26 crore households in the country. 55% there are still either kacha, semi-pakka, that means made of thatch, tiles, stones, etc., non-metal or non-concrete. Only 29% are concrete and 16% are metal rope like GCNC kind of. So there's a big, very high opportunity of converting those houses into a better material. Yeah, if you look at the per capita steel consumption, that is a matter of discussion today. And we all know that India is very low in terms of steel consumption. We have only 74 kilo per capita consumption, where South Korea is 1,000 kilo per capita, or China is 633, or Japan is 498, so on. Steel and cement ratio, yes, that is also an area where a lot more can be done. In Japan, if you look at it, is 1.84. And if you look at South Korea, it is 1.3, Russia is 1.26, and India is only 0.35. That means Japan is almost 5 to 6 times more consuming steel in a like-to-like construction. And there's a rapid urbanization also happening in India. In 2000, it was 28%. In 2022, 20, it is around 35% is expected. And by 2045, 50% urbanization is going to happen. So there are a lot of opportunity if you consider all these numbers. So looking at Tata Steel, we are primarily domestic focused company, and we believe fundamentally providing the best product and service to consumer. And the second part is how do we educate consumer more and more using steel and the best product. We have two brands like Tata Tiscon, that is sponsoring brand today, and Tata Shakti, that is a roofing brand we have. These brands were launched in year 2000, and they have completed almost 20 years now. We have sold around 10 million TMT and around 3.5 million Tata Shakti through this brand, and covered crores of consumers and built crores of houses. In this whole journey, our always focus was making customer aware about this right and informing him with the better product and services. So we started and we initiated many industry-shaping activities and initiatives like product marking, the printing and marking logo on the product, bringing price transparency through recommended consumer price, increasing shopping experience of people through our retail identity program. It's a steel showroom. We built almost thousands of showrooms across the country. We have brought a lot of innovative product. Earlier, the GC seat used to be only 2.5 feet wide, and Tata Steel came up with an idea, why not a wider seat? We started producing 4-foot seat to have better savings for the customer in terms of overlap and leakage reduction. Similarly, in case of TMT rebar, we first brought out super ductile, concept of super ductile and 500 SD product we have introduced. Super links, again, is a very, very important element for construction, the stirrups. Always it needs to get made manually. We introduced the concept of machine-made super links, the stirrups, and later on also improved this durability by applying a graphene coating on this. That is a GFX for the super links we are marketing today. Similarly, to promote steel consumption, we have taken up a new initiative called Tata Pravesh. It's a door brand where we are making steel doors and windows made out of steel and absolutely look and feel like wooden. So customer will not have to compromise the look and feel of the product they want, but it will be made out of steel, and therefore steel is a green material, and that is how the steel consumption will also go up. So I can go on. There are so many initiatives, like Nestin is one such initiative where we are marketing the prefabricated solutions. Under this, like a lot of ready-made toilets are made, and there is light gauge steel LGSF solutions for various superstructures, and water ATM. There's kind of many solutions are marketed under Nestin brand. So if you look at all these products and services in place, what are the few key trends we are finding that is coming up and they're really going to shape up steel consumption? So one of them is the convenience that today people are gradually adopting digital with a higher level of internet reach and cheaper data. So 2019, if you look at, there was only 100 million users. By 25, there will be 300 million, and by 2030, 1 billion kind of users. So people want comfort and convenience. With a click of a button, they need the product and services. And that's a trend we observe. Home, it is also increasing, getting its importance in a more increasing way. And the COVID also taught us the home can be used as office, could be used as school or for entertainment now. The home is getting gradually more importance. In case of rural consumption, that is also improving, increasing because of digital penetration. There might be a lot of rural startups. Flexible work policy might also go for reverse migration towards village or semi-urban spaces. Therefore, consumption of houses will go up. Rural income is also growing, and the shifting from kacha to semi-pakka, this non-pakka roof to pakka roof, the concrete roof is also see a lot of changes. Similarly, concept of green building also improving. So looking at all this, we have also taken a few initiatives that I wanted to share at this platform. One is that Asiana, that is a platform we have created for convenience of customers, because we found through our survey that home building in this country is not very easy because people do not get enough information on product and services. And it's a country of trust deficit. Nobody believes other guy. So that's why there should be an independent platform where customers can get enough information, design, estimation, the best service providers in terms of machine, contractor, etc. So we amalgamated all of them under a platform called Asiana. It's a portal where people can get beautiful designs across the region. What is the prevalent designs in various regions like Northeast, West, South. Similarly, they can also have a estimation of the building, like kind of steel they require, cement and other products. Similarly, the host of service providers are also listed out there in terms of dealers, fabricators, architect, engineers. So it's a very good platform for facilitating their home building journey. And as our brand stands for joy of building, and that is how we are going to bring it. Second part, I think some of the panelists also touched upon that, upscaling the ecosystem to promote a better construction, a better usage of steel. So we are holding e-discovery as a program where we connect all the architect and engineer, budding engineers from the colleges as well as who are there at their early part of career to educate them what are the best construction practices, what are the best material to be used and how to be used. So in also going down, we are also training the masons who are also backbone of this construction industry. We have around 20,000 masons we have under the Mitra Club, and we are regularly training them, educating them on promoting best steel consuming practices. Another program we do called Gaon Gaon Mein Sakti Ke Chhaon. This is basically a program to educate villagers. We go to the deep inside the village and educate people to use steel as compared to other alternatives like thatch, tiles, etc. Generally, steel is considered to be a costly material. But if you look at the total cost of ownership, that means the cost of a life cycle, then steel will be quite cheaper because considering the maintenance and finally so this knowledge we are calculating down to this program. We have already touched upon 150 districts, which account for almost 80% of this Kachal semi-Bakar roofs in India. 2 lakhs consumer we could have touched upon and 45,000 villages we could cover. We also like to mention some of the other products like Tiscon Ready Build. It is basically cotton bent product which will reduce the wastage and improve the yield and reduce the construction time considerably. And Smart Fab, that is a welded wire fabric for slab casting, which reduces slab casting time by 70%. Tata Structura, again, a product range we have in square hollow sections that also reduces 30% steel if you design properly. So there are and other products like 600 megapascal steel that is in TMT and PE coated LRPC strands. So those products are actually helping construction and promoting best practices. So if we look at how to improve the steel consumption and make this consumption more efficient, only three areas we can think of. One is the building frame. Currently, the RCC frames are used mostly. That is reflecting the steel and the cement and steel ratio, which can go for steel intensive structure, as some of the panelists was mentioning about it. Similarly, slab, today we use mostly RCC slabs. This can be done a combination of steel deck and light concrete. And walls, today we're using brick walls that can go converted into dry walls. If you look at the trends in USA, this LGSF structures, like the steel frame, is used 400 ton per day as compared to India, 12 ton per day. Similarly, dry walls, if you look at 6 meters square per capita, that is the consumption in US, and in India it is 0.5. So there's a huge area for improvement. So in nutshell, if you look at as a steel company or government together, we can work on 3 areas. One is awareness program for consumers on benefit of steel based on construction versus RCC. Secondly, updating the curriculum of engineering colleges, the civil engineering colleges in particular for steel detailing. That it should start from the day one the engineers learn that is the best way to promote steel and is the best material for construction. Increasing awareness of new technologies like modern framework for building modeling system. Similarly, economic fireproofing and corrosion protections. In case of policies, also need to consider few facts like today we do all the tendering on L1 basis. Rather, it should be on LCCA basis. That is life cycle cost analysis rather than the entry cost. So these policies like the standards we have like IS 801, which is a light gauge steel frame sections. That standard, it is pretty old. 1975 it was introduced and the revision has happened only in 2001. That can be revised. Similarly, IS 13174, that also talks about the life cycle cost standard. That is also pretty old, 2005, needs to be revised. So this is the policy interventions required.
But we have like 2 minutes to conclude this session, please.
Yeah, I'm already end of it. So, and second one, of course, is the capability development, the structural engineers and the MITRE members, the missions, etc. We already talked about. But if I take all these actions, probably we can promote more and more steel usage and the growth, the way we look at it.
Shriyal, so we call for some question answers, 2 or 3.
As much as I would have loved to take questions, we've kind of overshot our time. What we can do is I can take one question that we did have for Mr. Sharma. Have you received the question, Dr. Dasgupta?
No, yeah. Please let Mr. Sharma answer this question.
Okay, so I'll take this very quickly, Mr. Sharma. So any scope to revamp gas-based plants in India due to lack of gas units are closed, are low in running? Any alternative viable fitment for utilization that can be used for steel building?
Please repeat the question.
Yes, any scope to revamp gas-based plants in India? Are there any alternatives viable fitment for utilization that can be used for steel building?
Yes, 2 things. One is gas-based plants, DRI plants. I think the person is asking about DRI plants. All of these DRI plants can be fed through, instead of natural gas, we can feed through the coal gas that is called syngas. And also the coke oven gas can be mixed. Today, we are using 60% of coal gas, that is synthesis gas, and 40% we use coal gas, that is COG, that is coke oven gas. So this is one area. And all of the DRI, vertical shaft DRI kilns, they can be run on coal gas or coal syngas and plus coke oven gas together. This is one area. The other area is the substitute to steel. Yes, the substitute to steel is being developed by many people, many countries. And the biggest developer in the world is NASA and also DRDO. So DRDO and NASA, they have developed so many products which can definitely replace steel in many of the applications, but not in all applications. And because that is called composite fiber and carbon composite fiber, plastic composite fiber. So these products are very common and people are trying to utilize it. But the point here is whether we should use these products for the technological requirement or for the cost requirement. If this is technological requirement, then we should try to do it because it is not cost effective as of now. But if it is a cost is a matter, then as of now, there is no substitute to steel available in the world. And as rightly said by our panelist from Tata Steel, they have developed something to replace wooden door and wooden furniture and wooden window frames and door frames. And they are now supplying the solutions like steel solutions. There is another company called APL Apollo. So they have also come in a big way. They are also supplying such solutions. So instead of wood, you can use steel, galvanized or color-coated or mild steel or carbon steel, whatever. So the direct replacement of steel is yet to be discovered. People are discovering it. But yes, on case-to-case basis, there are certain areas where the steel can be replaced by some different products.
Thank you so much for responding to that. And that brings us to an end of this panel discussion. I would like to thank Dr. Dasgupta and all our panelists for sharing such insights with us. This has been very informative. I think we've discussed everything right from quality to exports to costing and a lot more. So thank you so much. And with that, I move on to our next session that we have for today. So coming up next is the session on innovation. Steel is innovating using digital edge in steel structures. It is also working on optimizing resource efficiency. Several other initiatives aiming at reducing CO2 during steel making are being investigated around the world. Structural steel, too, is rich with innovation. The continual development of higher strength materials are new, and new material standards are regularly being developed. For the next session, I now welcome Dr. Sachin Kumar, Senior Fellow, Industrial Energy Efficiency Division, TERI. He's going to make his presentation focusing on decarbonization of steel factories. But before he takes over, a few words about him. Dr. Kumar has more than 20 years of experience in the field of energy efficiency and environment improvement in the industry sector. He is closely involved in various initiatives being undertaken for decarbonization of the industry sector in India. He has successfully led a number of studies related to development and dissemination of energy efficient technological solutions in the energy intensive industry subsectors. On an ongoing initiative, Dr. Kumar is involved in assessing the potential of hydrogen use across different industry subsectors in India. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Kumar. And over to you from here. You have 15 minutes for your presentation, and we are absolutely intrigued to hear from you.
Thank you for the introduction, but can you please give me the right to share my screen? I want to have a small presentation.
Yes, sure. Could we give Dr. Kumar the rights to share his screen, please?
So first of all, let me thank the organizer for giving me and the TERI the opportunity to present. And I will be talking very briefly about transition toward the low carbon steel manufacturing process in India. Very briefly about the Indian steel sector, we all know that India is the second largest steel producer. But more importantly, we have a mix of technologies which are being used in India for steel production, right from blast furnace BF route to the coal-based DRI to the gas-based DRI. We have electric arc furnace, induction furnace. But what is unique about Indian steel sector is that we have a coal-based direct reduction process, which is quite unique. I would say that since a large production of the iron making process is done using non-coking coal, which is in abundance in India, and this technology is very unique, I would say, for India. In terms of the production sites, these are mostly located on the eastern region of the country because of the availability of fuel and raw material, and it also helps in reducing the transportation cost for the manufacturing process. Coming straight to the energy consumption aspect, which is sort of a topic of my presentation, energy and decarbonization aspects. So if we see the Indian economy, then industry is consuming more than 50% of the total energy. And within the industry sector, iron and steel manufacturing is, I would say, the largest industry subsector. Apart from steel, other sectors are brick manufacturing or the cement, which also uses a lot of fossil fuel in terms of coal. Very broadly, we see the Indian steel sector. So this may not be give the, I would say, a direct representation, but it gives a fair bit of idea about where we stand in terms of the specific energy consumption in our steel manufacturing process. If we compare with our peers from other countries, then we still have a lot of scope to reduce our specific energy consumption. And there are understandably some challenges for the plants which are a bit older. They find it difficult to retrofit. There are challenges with respect to the availability of finance. There are challenges with respect to availability of space. But this slide just shows us that we still have a lot of potential in terms of energy, saving our energy consumption within the manufacturing process altogether. And I think in the previous session, it has been talked about that the steel demand will grow in future. The national steel policy said that we have to increase our steel production by 2030 to around 300 million ton. And the TERI, we have done some analysis, and based on the infrastructure plan, based on the urbanization process, based on the industrialization process, we feel that by 2050 we will be having the demand of around 500 million ton. But having said that, if we are able to integrate the resource efficiency measures, and when we talk about these measures, it include the improvement in the energy efficiency to reduce the energy consumption, plus having some circularity aspect to reduce the steel demand. So maybe in the automobile sector, we can think of using less steel, or maybe For the building, we can think of high-strength steel, or maybe we can think of sharing of our rights. I know I'm speaking a bit against the steel sector, but it is in the context of reducing the energy consumption from the steel sector. So again, this slide shows that one of the major routes for the Indian steel sector is the BF route. And right now, if we see very broadly, our specific energy consumption will be somewhere around 6.5 gigacalorie per ton of crude steel. We do have plants which have more than this. So the tail plants can have the specific energy consumption as high as 9 gigacalorie per ton of crude steel. But there are ample scope to reduce its energy consumption by currently adopting the, I would say, the available technologies, which are technological intervention, which are already deployed by many steel manufacturing units. And then slowly by slowly, if we adopt the best available technologies which are applicable for this route globally, we can save a substantial part of our energy consumption, which we are right now consuming. And there is a potential of saving around 2.5 gigacalorie per ton of crude steel in terms of specific energy consumption for BF route. Similarly, this slide highlights some of the measures for the DRI-based route, DRI electric arc furnace-based route. Again, here we can save around 1.7 gigacalorie per ton of crude steel by adopting some measures which are available globally. And by adopting these measures, if we see our steel sector in 2050, we will be able to save a substantial part of energy. So if we continue to make steel the way we are doing, and we continue the policy regime. So right now, if we see the energy consumption aspect, the only policy which specifically target this aspect, that is the perform, achieve and trade scheme of the Ministry of Power. So if we continue with that scheme and efficiency improves as it is improving right now, so we will be consuming somewhere around more than 200 million ton of oil equivalent energy in 2050. But if we are able to integrate the best available technologies, and these technologies have been identified already by the Indian steel sector, Ministry of Steel, in collaboration with the Japanese counterparts, and also these technologies have been implemented elsewhere in the other steel manufacturing units globally. So if we are able to integrate those best available technologies in our steel sector, then we will be able to save cumulatively around 900 million ton of oil equivalent by 2050, only by the steel manufacturing processes. Now, these are basically in terms of the energy consumption from the energy efficiency aspect. But if we have to say, move towards the low carbon steel manufacturing process, or if we are thinking of decarbonizing our steel sector, say around by 2060 or around that time, then we have to move towards the advanced technological options. And when we talk about these advanced technological options, they basically fall in 3 groups very broadly. So the first can be based on the carbon-based route. So if we talk about the carbon-based route, although they are using the fossil fuel in the form of carbon, and one of the talked about technology is the Hysagna technology, which is being championed by the Tata Steel Europe. And this technology, by using this technology with the existing BF process, we can save around 20% of carbon dioxide emission. But if we are able to integrate the carbon capture aspect also, then we can save around 80% of the CO2 emission. I know for India, the carbon capture and storage is right now not being a feasible option. A lot of studies has not been undertaken for the Indian scenario. Where are the feasible sites? What is the cost? So all these things has to be done. But if we go about the discussion that is going around globally, this seems to be an option which can be explored. And maybe by 2030, we are able to get some hold on this particular aspect on the carbon capture or the Hysagna technology, which is applicable for the BF route. Secondly, if we come about the hydrogen route, and I think this is the most talked about option these days for the Indian economy. We have heard Honorable Finance Minister Sitharamanji talking about the National Hydrogen Energy Mission. We have seen the initiative being taken by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the Planning Commission. So all are talking about the hydrogen-based economy. And very recently, I think MNRE has said that the industry sector, which they are focusing from the hydrogen point of view, then the steel is there along with fertilizer and refinery sector. So steel is very much there in the scheme of things for the hydrogen part. And when we thought of the hydrogen steel making process, then right now the hybrid technology which is being demonstrated or piloting being done in Sweden. So hydrogen breakthrough iron making technology, and it is expected that the pilot plant based on this technology will be commissioned by 2025, and we will have the full scale plant by 2035. But more important point is that when we are talking about the Indian steel sector decarbonization aspect, then we have to learn, we have to adopt these advanced technological options, which is right now being piloting in other countries globally. And I know there are implications with regard to the technology transfer, with regard to the finance, but these are the issues I think which as an Indian steel sector, we have to tackle by say another 8 to 10 years by 2030 or so that we are on course of achieving a decarbonization aspect by 2050 or 2060 in the Indian steel sector. And the third route is the electric route, which is again on very, I would say on a lab scale, so not much pilot or demonstration is there. But certainly the carbon-based route and the hydrogen-based route, these are two feasible options which are right now we can think of. I heard Mr. V.R. Sharma that they are using the gas-based route, and I think this is one of the transition phase when we talk about going to hydrogen-based steel manufacturing. I think that will take some time, but in between we can think of using more of the gas-based route, and we can use the natural gas. And I clearly understand that there is an issue of availability of natural gas and also the price. So if the natural gas has to compete with the BF route, then the price has to be somewhere around $6 to $8 per ton of crude steel. And right now we are having more than $10 to $12 per ton of crude steel. And there are challenges in terms of availability, in terms of cost. But if we have to advance our steel manufacturing process, as I said earlier, we have to think of this option, we have to adopt this option as we move ahead. And if we just try to summarize what are the basically, we have the options we have for the Indian steel sector. So I think in the 2020s, we can think of adopting the best available technologies which are already being commissioned, which are already being demonstrated, which are already being used in the country or elsewhere, irrespective of the challenges that we have in terms of the older facilities, in terms of the finance, in terms of the retrofitting challenges. But again, we have to think of adopting these measures. And then we have to club all these aspects with the resource efficiency aspects. And then we also have to think of using more of the scrap. The government initiative in terms of the steel scrap policy or the resource efficiency initiative by the government of India are all indicating this, that the scrap availability in the country will be more. And we have to use more and more of scrap in the steel manufacturing process in the 2020s. And when we switch to 2030s, then maybe we can adopt the Hisarna technology, which maybe by that time on a full scale plant will be there. And then we have the option to adopt those technology in all the new BF facility that will be coming in India. Similarly, in future, we can think of 2040s, we can think of the using more of the hydrogen. Right now, the cost of hydrogen production is very high. But in terms of the experience of using hydrogen, I would say that India still has a lot of experience because our fertilizer sector is using a lot of hydrogen. They are producing right now by steam methane reforming. Other option we have is the use of electrolysis. But again, the cost right now is not very competitive. It is very costly. But we are sure that by the policy initiative by the government of India and the interest shown by many players, not only from the industry sector, but by the transport sector or by the other economic sector, the price of hydrogen production in India will certainly fall down in future. And then we will have the possibility of using hydrogen for the steel sector also. And then we can also, in maybe at 2040 onward, we can think of having the new facilities coming on the using hydrogen. And very quickly on the potential of using this scenario on the saving in terms of the CO2 numbers. So if we continue the steel we are producing right now, we will be emitting somewhere around 800 million ton of CO2 per year in 2050. But if we are able to integrate the energy efficiency scenario, we are able to adopt the best available technology, then we will be able to save around 15% of our CO2 emission in future by 2050. And if we are able to integrate the resource efficiency measures also, then we can further reduce it by 10 to 15%. And then by 2030 onwards, if we are able to adopt the HISERNA technology with some CCUS, then we are again able to reduce the CO2 emission further by 10 to 15%. And if we are able to use hydrogen from 2040 onwards, maybe 18 years down the line or more than 2 decades down the line, then we are again able to save another 10 to 15% of the CO2 emission. But this is a sort of, I would say, optimistic scenario. And when we talk about a more aggressive hydrogen use in the Indian economy and also in the Indian steel sector, say by 2030, although I'm saying it is a very aggressive thinking that by 2030 we will be able to use hydrogen, but going by the way the Indian policymakers are now thinking in terms of hydrogen use in the economy, this may be feasible. I'm not sure, but by 2030 or 2035, we are able to use hydrogen in the steel manufacturing process. Then it is possible that we can think of decarbonizing our steel sector by 2050, not by 2050, then by 2060. But this is broadly, these are some of the options which are there for us to really decarbonize our manufacturing process. So if we talk about the different possible aspects, then I think we have to first increase use of the domestic scrap in the steel manufacturing process. We have to improve our energy efficiency by adopting the best available technologies. We have to inculcate the resource efficiency aspect in our manufacturing process, in our user habit. Our behavioral changes has to be there for improving the resource efficiency, for inculcating the circularity aspects. And then more importantly, I think this is very crucial for the Indian steel sector, that before preaching, I think in the previous session, the Madam Dasgupta has very clearly mentioned that it is always better to demonstrate something than to publicize or than to make the other users use that particular thing. So in this case also, I think for going for hydrogen, it is most important that we have some pilot or some demonstration actually in the field. The costs are very high. So maybe policy support by the government of India, or maybe the green funding from the green finance resources, they can help in demonstrating or establishing some pilot in the Indian condition, so that the confidence of the Indian manufacturer develops in these technologies, and they are able to adopt and switch over to these futuristic technological option. And I think, as we all know, that a lot of discussion is going around in the European circle on carbon tax or material which are having low carbon emissions. So in Indian policy making also, I think there will be some discussion in future. They may think of having policy measure to constrain emission. Right now they are having the PAT scheme, which is focusing on the specific energy consumption, but nobody knows in future there is some policy which target the carbon emission from a particular unit or a sector. So I think these are some of the measures which we feel that can help the Indian steel sector move towards a decarbonization pathway. So this is all from my side. And this is a report towards the low carbon steel sector, which is in public domain. And we have tried to elaborate all these options in detail in this report. I will be happy to share this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kumar, for a great presentation. A lot to hear about new technologies that suit the Indian context and help in decarbonizing the manufacturing process. Thank you so much once again. And after our session that focused on vision and innovation, our next and third session for today focuses on growth in stainless steel. The automotive, railway, and transport sector is emerging as the sector with the fastest growing consumption of stainless steel and alloy steel in the country. Real estate, commercial real estate, retail space, entertainment space, hospitality projects, and special economic zones are all using stainless steel, much more too. So how is stainless steel finding its space along with conventional materials such as steel, glass, plastics, and aluminum composites? If this is your question, then certainly offering you some exciting answers is the Fireside Chat, a candid discussion between Dr. Shushmita Das Gupta, former Joint Chief Economist, Joint Plant Committee, Ministry of Steel, and Mr. K.K. Pahuja, President, Indian Stainless Steel Development Association. Thank you once again, Dr. Dasgupta, for joining us in this session. I would also like to welcome Mr. K.K. Pahuja with a brief introduction. Mr. K.K. Pahuja has over 40 years of experience in the steel industry in the areas of operations, market development, and policy making. As President of Indian Stainless Steel Development Association, he is currently driving efforts for promotion and growth of the Indian stainless steel industry. A warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. With that, over to you, Dr. Dasgupta, to take this session forward. You have 15 minutes for this session, and we look forward to an interesting, candid discussion.
Thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. Actually, I wanted to ask a question for Professor Sachin, that how, anyway, we can have that discussion later, that how does he differentiate between energy efficiency and resource efficiency, what he means specifically by saying resource efficiency, and is resource efficiency and or energy efficiency connected metallurgically in any manner to the quality of steel that we get? So these are the questions I had for Professor Sachin, and I'm sure that in the chat he will definitely answer these. Now, welcome Mr. Karan Pahuja. Nice to see you, because we've not been meeting for so long. And I'm very happy that stainless steel, you're coming in a big way, because stainless steel is, I personally feel that is actually going to be the steel. People will make only stainless steel, and mild steel will be kept for large projects like infrastructure, very high-rise buildings or light frame structures. But for the basic domestic purposes of putting up grills and railings and, bus stands, bus shades, I think that area is going to be slowly taken over entirely by stainless steel. So please, I would like to hear from you on your future plans.
Thank you, Sushmita, and thank you, Shreya, and thank you, First Construction Council, for this very, very fantastic session. Stainless steel, being a small industry by volume, gets left out, but I think Sushmita has made some remarks about the way forward. See, stainless steel is, when I was in SAIL, I remember a statement by our ex-chairman, Mr. Krishnamurthy, long back. He says steel should be replaced by better quality steel, otherwise it will get replaced by other substitutes. So what better way to substitute steel or any other material than with a superior quality of steel called stainless steel. So we know stainless steel. I think I don't have to explain what is stainless steel. It is the most prominent property of stainless steel is corrosion resistance, which comes by way of addition of chromium to the extent of minimum 10.5%. And other alloying elements, nickel, molybdenum, and other elements give it further distinctive properties. Now, there are certain similarities between our Indian stainless steel industry and carbon steel industry, in the sense that we are second largest producer of steel, and we are also second largest producer of stainless steel. Our per capita consumption of stainless steel is also 1/3 of global average, like rest of the steel. But the similarity ends there. In the sense that it's a very, very distinct industry and a very value-added industry. Total production is about, I think if I have 2000, I don't have 2020 figure, but 2019, it was almost 3.9 million tons, or touching 4 million tons. So that 4 million tons value-wise is nearly 4 times as far as the value goes in terms of value terms. So to start with, I will just like to enunciate our vision and ISTA. We are a association of all these major stainless steel producers, including some of the downstream units. Our industry structure is little unique in the sense that there are large corporates, and there are mid-sized units, and there are MSMEs spread all over the country. Our vision is to strive for corrosion-free world and a sustainable society. And our mission is to partner with our members, industry, government, and public at large for promoting stainless steel-based solution towards sustainability and growth. So the two key words for us is sustainability and growth. What it stands for, a sustainable growth model, is where we contribute for the growth of our industry and the nation in harmony with the environment and the society. It means that we recycle steel, we focus on health and hygiene, we optimize resources on lower maintenance, have longer life cycle and consequently lower life cycle costs, prevent corrosion and accidents by better materials, and so on. As you know, that corrosion losses in the economy are estimated to be about 100 billion, which is 3 to 4% of GDP. And this is our focus. We provide greater value to the all the stakeholders by better superior quality steel. Another aspect of our working is that we align ourselves with the government vision and priorities. Government initiatives like Swachh Bharat, Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India, Vocal for Local are built into our plans and actions. So with opening remarks, I'll hand it over to Sushmita if she has anything further to say.
Yes, Mr. Pahuja, I have a lot of questions. I wanted to know that who are these stainless steel makers? Are they any different from the induction furnace, or are the induction furnaces now getting converted?
No, like in carbon steel, we, first of all, stainless steel is all made by electric routes. There's no other route. And like rest of the electric route in the carbon steel sector, mostly it is electric arc furnace, but there are also induction furnaces because the MSMEs and small units, they work with induction furnace technology. And large corporates, they definitely have electric arc furnace. What is common is, what is very unique and further this thing is that in carbon steel, we don't have refining facilities in all the induction furnace units. But in stainless steel, normally the AOD is there as part of the melting operations so that the quality of steel can be maintained. There may be some odd units even without refining, but purely acting as a melting furnace, but this is the standard operating practice. And if you want a BIS certification and all that, all this technology has to be available. In fact, AOD is responsible for the growth and the innovation in stainless steel for the last 50, 60 years.
In terms of rolling stainless steel, can they be made in any rolling mill which rolls mild steel, or is there a different set of mills?
Mills is same, only the rolling process parameters may vary, like the temperature that you have to roll, the speeds you have to take. All the mills are similar to the other rolling mills.
Only the controls will have to change.
Control will have to change. Maybe the rolling force in the stands differs and so on. And secondly, it should not get contaminated with other materials. Otherwise, it will start corroding. So you need some pickling at the end and passivation to make it, not react with others.
So rolling mills must be, better equipped with pickling facilities.
Yes.
Yes. So the other thing is that, how much of stainless steel capacity growth are you seeing, and in which areas and which states?
Well, first of all, let me tell you as an economist, it might be of interest to you that stainless steel consumption growth is normally higher than carbon steel. For the reason that we catch the normal economic cycle of growth, and we also grow by substitution. So we substitute carbon steel, we substitute plastics, we substitute sometimes aluminum also, and we also catch the normal economic growth cycle. So if steel is growing by say 5 or 6%, the stainless steel will grow by maybe 7 or 8%, which has been actually the growth rate for last almost 5 decades.
And how much of stainless steel capacity are you seeing coming up?
Right now we have a lot of idle capacity in the industry. Okay. If I separate the another pattern which is different from long products is that long and flat in carbon steel is almost now 50-50. Yes. But in stainless steel, it is almost 80-20. 80% is still flat. And so-called, the long product applications are also taken over by the flat in terms of tubular products. So we have most of the consumption is in terms of flat products. Long product consumption in India is still not very, very high. It is still to catch up. And the major big long producers of the country are mainly export oriented. So we have a big corporate which is exporting almost 80 to 90% of its production of almost 4 or 5 lakh tons. So it's just a huge quantity in stainless steel and all to advanced markets. But the market is catching up, particularly the TMT bars are the way to go forward in terms of long products. Flat products, we already have a capacity of something like 5 million tons, but the capacity utilization is just about 60%. So we have a idle capacity, and as the demand goes up, I hope this will get absorbed, and then we'll have an investment cycle coming. Now its investment cycle is coming in all the full steel industry, and it will come in stainless steel also.
As far as raw material is concerned, what is your preferred raw material? I thought that scrap was the most preferred one.
Yeah, the preferred raw material is stainless steel scrap, not just carbon steel scrap. But stainless steel scrap is not available in the adequate quantities because stainless steel scraps comes into the market after a longer cycle. If carbon steel comes every 20-25 years, the stainless steel may come in 40 to 50 years. And we started late in the stainless steel sector as compared to rest of the steel industry. So the stainless steel scrap is not available in the country. It has to be imported because when you use scrap, you also get the alloying elements at scrap value, and it is more economical. But wherever it is not available, then the carbon steel scrap is used with addition of the alloying elements.
So you use DRI at all?
Sorry?
DRI, sponge iron is used at all?
Sponge iron is not used normally because it creates problem in the process.
Right. So we have basically 5 minutes. Are there any question and answers, Shriyal, for Mr. Pahuja?
We do not have any questions coming in yet. So you have those 5 minutes to take this forward.
Then I'll ask a few more questions to Mr. Pahuja because stainless steel is a very, very interesting area for me. I mean, I'm following this sector very closely. Mr. Pahuja, when I go to the villages, especially I have exposure into 2 villages. One is Haryana, where I live, and Calcutta and Shantiniketan, where my father also has a house. So sometimes we go and stay there. And, the kind of stainless steel I see only stainless steel here. I mean, if you want to have a mild steel fabricator, it is difficult to get one. So how do you really see so much of stainless steel? Or am I seeing exceptions?
No, you're not seeing exceptions. In fact, if you drive anywhere on the highways in the rural areas, you'll find those stainless steel railings, samples stacked up on the sides in all the villages.
Right.
And I'm glad to say that ISDA, along with its members and producers, have worked very hard over the last 10 to 20 years in developing this market. And a new industry itself has come up in terms of stainless steel pipes and tubes. It initially came for these decorative kind of pipes, handrails and so on. Now they are also diversifying into other type of pipes. But this industry, and I have seen here some very, very dynamic stainless steel entrepreneurs. Some of them are first generation entrepreneurs who are trying to experiment with stainless steel in different ways. And it is thanks to them and also a very extensive training programs for fabricators undertaken by ISDA along with its members, which goes down to the rural areas in the small towns. We collect all the fabricators of the area with the help of our dealers, etc., who might be selling stainless steel pipes, and collect them. We teach them about fabrication and educate them about the advantages of stainless steel. So we have reached a stage that if you really want to make a gate or a railing in your house and you call a local welder, he will advise you that please use stainless steel.
Yes, that is exactly what he's doing. I say, I don't like stainless steel for my railing. And he said, then, you make it of wood. only thing that, you know, Bolpur has is of stainless steel. And I think that ISDA has done absolutely commendable work. And this is for Satyajit Maiti. This is also for Mr. V.R. Sharma. This is for Mr. Alokesh Ray and Alex Legrig, who is Alan Legrig, who is now a guest in our country, encountering India for the first time. And I think that ISDA, in fact, INSDAG should also follow your principles. I think one day we'll have an INSDAG and ISDA meet.
We have done a couple of them. Yeah. Mr. Sushil Banerjee knows about it. Yeah. We have done it, but the kind of design data work which ISDAG has done for carbon steel, I think that is yet to be done in stainless steel. We have some ways to go, but we are coming back in now in structural applications of stainless steel also. And railways have already, you know, after that unfortunate incident of bridge collapse in Andheri in Bombay, which was, you know, inquiry revealed that it was due to corrosion of the bridges. Railways have taken upon themselves to build now stainless steel foot-over bridges. So that's another new area which is coming up. So we'll have stainless steel in structural applications very soon.
Thank you so much, Mr. Padode. We'll work on this later. We'll have many more meetings. And now Pritish is in INSDAG. So I think that we must take a leaf out of your exercises and progress to make stainless.
We'll be very happy to work with INSDAG and develop this further.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Padode.
Thank you.
Shreya, over to you now.
Yes, Mr. Pahuja, we have one question for you. That yes, how do you see the future of stainless steel TMT rebar in India?
In my personal opinion is that stainless steel rebar is something whose time has come. Yes. And we have a long coastline, and coastline structures especially are prone to corrosion, whether RCC or otherwise. And I'm very happy to inform this house that two big, users, one is Indian Railways and National Highway Authority of India, have brought out a policy circular. Railways have said that they must use stainless steel rebars within 30 kilometers of the coastline. And NHAI has brought out a circular that is very recent, that within 15 kilometers of coastline, any bridges, etc., should have stainless steel rebars. So rebar is going to catch up like anything, like it has done in the rest of the world. And let me tell you, my friends from the carbon steel industry, stainless steel rebar is used exclusively or partly depending on the user's requirement, and the grade can be also selected accordingly. So it's something which is coming up in a very big way, and some of our producers and members, they've already taken up the production facilities in a very big way. I'm sure the kind of demand we are seeing, there may not be enough producers very soon.
Yeah, I think so. TMT rebars of stainless steel are required everywhere because steel quality, is deteriorating very rapidly in the country. So I think stainless steel will come to our rescue.
I'm just last point. If any of the members or any audience wants to know more about any area of stainless steel, we are always available. You can contact us. Our contact details are on the website.
Yeah, you can circulate to all the participants.
Sure.
Yes, sure. We will certainly do that. Thank you so much for such an
And one more last point. Yes. My request to the First Construction Council. I saw a very good TMT report coming up. Why don't you add a section on stainless steel rebar also there?
Definitely, we make a note of that. And when, since you're saying that there is a very bright future for, SSTMT rebars, why not? We will definitely make note of this.
And we'll be able to help you with all the information that you need on this.
Thank you. Thank you for that support. Means a lot. Only encourages us to do much more than what we are doing in our field. Thank you so much. Definitely an edifying session. I would once again like to thank Mr. Pahuja for joining us today. I request our moderator, Dr. Das Gupta, to continue staying with us as we now move on to our last session and panel discussion for the day. Our last session for today focuses on re-engineering. Light steel gauge frame is an innovative form of construction gaining ground. This new innovative method independently is typically suitable for 1 to 4 story high buildings, especially for residential and commercial buildings, and in combination with hot rolled steel sections for buildings higher than G+3. India's requirements for affordable housing can well be addressed with this innovation. So a few questions here. How innovative is this construction form? Why should the industry opt for it? How does it help address the requirements of affordable housing? And is it affordable in terms of cost and availability? Is it sustainable? If these are your questions too, then do join me in listening to this expert panel that would discuss all of this and more.
Shall I begin? Thank you, Shriyal. Thank you,
Dr. Dasgupta, I'll just give an introduction to all the panel members who would be joining you in this session. So as we have already introduced Dr. Dasgupta right from the beginning, the former Joint Chief Economist, Joint Plant Committee, Ministry of Steel, would be moderating this session. Also, please welcome Dr. Ashok Bharadwaj, Director and CEO, Stallion LG SF Machines, with senior level industry experience of over 38 years in reputed Indian and multinational companies. Mr. Bharadwaj has led areas of sales and marketing, business development, strategy and project management in the sectors of steel and auto. Also, please welcome Professor Mahendra Kumar Madhavan, PhD, Associate Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Hyderabad. Dr. Madhavan leads the Structural Steel Research Group at IIT Hyderabad. His principal research interest lies in the areas of physical testing of structural members and systems, numerical modeling through the use of commercially available finite element packages, and in the development of new design methods for steel-intensive structures. Next, Mr. Anish Chopra, Managing Director and CEO, Greenfi Eco Technologies. After a short stint in a management role in the service industry, Mr. Chopra underwent a 3-year intensive training and experience in the construction of prefabricated cold-formed steel buildings. He is a serial entrepreneur with an interest in developing startups into sustainable organizations. And also joining us on this panel is architect Anita Dake, founder of Vector Designs. Ms. Dake has developed expertise of an architectural engineering firm through her practice over the last 30 years. She is a member of the Council of Architecture and a visiting faculty at BNCA College. A warm welcome to all of you and thank you for joining us today. We have 40 minutes for this discussion and we look forward to an informative and engaging one. With that, over to you, Dr. Dasgupta.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya. Thank you so much. I asked Vrushali in the morning that for this particular panel, because it's very important, Mr. Bharadwaj, please don't hate me, but I would like to put you at the third position. There is a reason for that, because it will really sequence you up very well. And I would like to put Anish first as the opening, because, light gauge frame frames are going to be actually the future of construction. And I'm so happy to meet Anita Dake here. I'm very happy to meet Professor Madhavan, because this is one area I have, really taken to for the purposes of proposal. And the design inputs, if we use LGFS, is absolutely mind-boggling. And I think that the future of construction lies not so much in materials as it is in the design. So Anish, you and I have been having this conversation about the design aspects and about the assembly aspects. Please begin your presentation. And I think, Shreya, can I give the speakers 10 minutes?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, 10 minutes. Yeah.
Am I audible clearly, Dr. Dasgupta?
Yeah, you are audible. You are audible to me. Shreya, is she audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So good evening to everyone and all the dignitaries, and thank you very much for having me here. I would like to begin that building with steel, that is light gauge steel frame technology or cold form steel, or in India, there's another side of it which is hybrid or composite steel. This is the most sustainable methods of construction, since though steel has high embodied energy while production of steel coils, still a recyclable property of steel and reusability along with the mining of eco-friendly materials during the construction are some of the ways in which steel structure technology is really sustainable, and there can be a life cycle analysis done over the entire lifetime of the building, wherein the net energy saving can also be really taken care of. So that's one side of it. And out of my own 15 years of experience and research in cold and hybrid structures, my belief and observations is that the per capita steel consumption and demand for the steel buildings can be increased by making this technology widely available and widely acceptable in India, first of all. And that in turn can happen only if the consumers of the building, that is the users, the actual users of the building, accept it down to the grassroots level. And they discard the traditional concrete construction method, in which they are still till now most comfortable. Now, to achieve this, we need to have a real perception change in favor of steel buildings and steel constructions. But for that, quality is needed. As some of the panelists in the earlier sessions very rightly said, that the quality of buildings for the users is the most important. However, we need to look into a very finer aspect that, the users, the building owners, the infrastructure, consumers, they are not looking for the quality of the skeleton steel coils or the roll forming product, which is the steel sections. What they are looking for is the high quality of buildings and design. That is where the architectural and interior finishing, as well as the design of the steel buildings, is the prime most important to change the perception. Though the quality of structure is inherent, however, there are very, very few companies who are actually concentrating on quality of design and finishing in India, and that is where the negative perception may have formed in the previous few years. However, our organization Greenify, which is GREENIFYI, is the only steel buildings company in India and the Indian subcontinent which is coming from a hardcore interior design and architectural construction background, as compared to the other players in the industry who come from either, say, industrial building backgrounds or the cladding board manufacturers who have just bought a machine of light gauge framing and you start roll forming the products, or they either come from a cement manufacturing background, textiles, furniture, or operation theater background. But who are hiring just industrial engineers and unskilled petty contractors. They're training the contractors maybe, but where is the quality? Who's concentrating on that? And hence, they do not have an inherent capability and practical experience of interior design and finishing, which is permeated to their system, to their entire system and history. And that is what the customers need, the consumers need. And so hence we at Greenify, with 15 years of architectural and steel building construction experience, plus a 35 years of turnkey interiors experience of our parent group, are presenting a perfect alternative to fill this long pending gap between policy and consumers. This gap is huge. And we are having a lot of webinars and a lot of discussions in India, but that actually can be filled by practical products that we can deliver. And for achieving that, in fact, I've been having discussions with Dr. Das Gupta, very, very interesting discussions, and many other high-end, high-profile dignitaries in India at various levels. We are on the way of conducting and formalizing organized trainings pan-India with the experience that we come from. Because only an experienced people, can conduct trainings is what we believe, because it prepares the next generation, And India is a developing country. So it needs to grow with a super fast speed to achieve the Government of India target and to become developed. And we all need to contribute in that. But for that, the super fast construction technology is really needed in India. infrastructure development as well as construction has to be super fast, while not compromising on what we deliver as an end product, as well as not compromising on a carbon footprint and air and noise pollution as well. And plus there's another very important point is the water consumption. The RCC and concrete buildings for curing, etc., they consume so much of water, which is really scarce and very important these days. So this aspect also we are promoting, and for that, say for example, even for PMAY projects, we were having a discussion recently that even the low-income people, the group of people, what they are achieving from PMAY, they must receive a home which is durable over a span of at least 50 to 100 years, rather than just achieving the time. And that is where light gauge steel framing as well as cold form steel or hybrid composite structures can really contribute. And in fact, it was a very interesting idea generated by Dr. Das Gupta just now in this session, the earlier session, that we must create prototypes. So to create awareness, what we at Greenify are also doing is collaborating with various organizations, and we are constructing prototypes for them using the cold form steel structures, and we are constructing so that people can come and touch and feel the technology fully finished. One of such initiatives we in fact did for TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute, Delhi, and where we constructed a green building mock-up for them called Sparsh, along with Briha. And we demonstrated how prefabricated steel buildings can be designed, as well as green buildings, and integrating energy efficient systems and materials with recycled content. And we got an amazing response. So we are ready to take similar initiatives with many other organizations. They may feel free to contact us through our website, www.greenify.com. That's GRENIFY.com. So to conclude my presentation or my session, I would like to say that, who in India is thinking about what will happen with these buildings which are getting constructed today beyond 50 years, beyond 75 years? Who's thinking about re-engineering? Who's thinking, what are we leaving an unresolved problem for the future generations who will have to handle demolitions and reconstruction of these old structures there onwards? And how will that demolition waste and the re-engineering be taken care of? Who's thinking about recycling? Who's thinking about the technology? And hence, steel structure technology is the best technology to adopt in construction, which is happening across the world. So these kind of initiatives are very important. We are ready to help in whichever format across India and the subcontinent as well. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you so much, Anish. Now I get another interesting perspective into your endeavors, and that is, restoration of old buildings, which we don't want to crumble and fall. So steel bracing is a very, very important thing. And I think that, because, your company is young, you are young as well, we should take up the training program, as you rightly said, actually to the architects and the designers, because, we have focused too much on the masonry, we have focused too much on the contractor, but we have really never focused on the real aspect, where the design should go. As Mr. Alain Langres was saying that, that design component, we have not really focused on where the design will go. And I think that I think you basically need to do a lot of work, and we'll take this up forward. I think let's be at it. Actually, Mr. Ashok Bhardwaj just put third because I thought that his presentation was very important. So I'll just put Mr. Madhavan for 10 minutes, and then we'll come to Ashok Bhardwaj.
Okay, no problem.
Professor Madhavan.
Okay. Thank you, madam, for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible. Shriyal, okay. Is he audible? Yeah, you're audible.
Yes.
Okay. Basically, I just wanted to give a brief overview of what is happening. In India, the most of the construction, as Anish had said, is mostly wet-based construction. Okay, but going forward, I think we need to go from a wet-based construction to a dry-based construction, which is what is necessary in India. Because wet-based construction takes up a lot more time, and the primary construction material for wet-based construction is concrete. So if you look at concrete, there are 4 major ingredients for concrete. What are the 4 major ingredients? One is obviously cement, which is based on limestone sources, and limestone is also fast depleting. From what I understand, talking to experts, it is going to be in 10 to 15 years, limestone sources will also get depleted. Next one is your fine aggregate, which is your sand. I know that we all know that the National Green Tribunal in India has restricted the access for river sand. The third one is the coarse aggregate, which is basically breaking up mountains and making into small pieces. So I am from Hyderabad here, working IIT Hyderabad. So if you make a road travel from Hyderabad to Vijayawada, in the left side and right side, there are a lot of mountains, but the mountains are now broken into small pieces just to satisfy our need for large amount of concrete. So that is actually is not a sustainable way to go forward for a construction. The 4th major ingredient that is necessary for making a good quality concrete is your water. It is not just water, it is a potable water. So, which is also in demand. So if you know that the water is now a commodity for trading. So you can look at all the 4 major ingredients that are making concrete are an unsustainable material which cannot be used for a long period of time. So the general tendency for us is to move from a wet-based construction to a dry-based construction. Now coming to dry-based construction, we are looking at 2 types of steel. One is your hot rolled steel, which is thicker, and then a cold formed steel, which is very thin, up to 2.5 mm, 0 to 2.5 mm. And usually for cold formed steel, the structural thickness, I would say, is from 1 mm. Okay, but there is a tendency of school of thought that cold formed steel can be used only for G+1 or G+2, or maybe for villas or for some kind of a rural housing where you don't have to put for higher stories. But in fact, it is not true. Cold formed steel, for example, has been successfully used, at least in the US, okay, by what is known as mid-rise construction. They can go up to G+10. Okay, they can go up to G+10. Sorry, I'm just looking at my. Just a second. Give me a second. Okay, you can go up to G+10. I have to plug my power. So you can go up to G+10 for cold formed steel. Okay, so basically, cold formed steel is an excellent material. Okay, it comes in coils. The most important thing is pre-galvanized, either it's zinc coated or galvalume. And there are only 2 companies, in my opinion, that manufacture cold formed steel. One is Tata Steel and one is JSW, both of which have strict quality control. So the primary raw material ingredients that you get for making a CFS construction is intact. And the research has proven that the zinc coating is very good for at least 50 or more than years. So basically, you will not have any issues with corrosion. But the fundamental problem that I see going forward is having a lack of understanding of the behavior of cold formed steel. People who work in steel industry, especially who come from hot rolled steel industry, actually tend to extrapolate the behavior of a hot rolled steel for a cold formed steel. And then they try to design, which is absolutely incorrect in understanding. For example, being an academic, I can tell you that the failure mechanism for example, for a hot rolled steel is only local buckling or global buckling. Whereas for a cold formed steel, it has another buckling mechanism called distortional buckling, local, global, and distortional buckling. And many people miss that. And our codal provisions, unfortunately, was last revised in 1975. Okay, it's more than 45 years that the codal provisions have been revised. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to build more houses. Okay, but basically we are trying to put the cart in front of the horse. So what happens is that we are trying to build more houses without having a fundamental understanding. So what is the need of the hour? The need of the hour is for the government agencies or the private players who are in this industry to come forward, have a pooled resources so that we can generate a large amount of data set that is necessary for formulation of design guidelines. Right now, what we are doing is that, you are just trying to build certain things in an effort to build, but not optimizing the resources that we have got. The most important goal in any type of construction is to optimize. So, if you know what you're doing, in design parlance, it's called factor of safety. If you don't know what you're doing, it becomes factor of ignorance. So if I don't know something, what I will do typically, or somebody will do, is that multiply by 2 and give the steel tonnage more. So right now, we don't have a fundamental understanding of the cold form steel behavior per se. The codal provisions are outdated. The only code that we can trust and rely for building a cold form steel housing is the American Iron and Steel Institute. The research carried out at IIT Hyderabad for the last 9 years clearly indicate that even there is a lot of deficiency associated with American Iron and Steel Institute. Some of the fundamental philosophies that have been employed for the development of design predictor equations are incorrect. We have a number of results that indicate that there is a lot more serious research to be done. So while I'm very enthusiastic about the usage of cold form steel and to contribute to the government's mission, Government of India's mission of housing for all, to eradicate the homelessness from our country and to ensure that every Indian citizen has a shelter over his head, there is also something that we need to do is to have a fundamental understanding before we go for these things. So, and one more thing is that I would also request that we don't restrict the cold form steel usage for G+2 or G+3. Rather, we should, in terms of mid-rise construction. So for mid-rise construction, what is most essential is not to go for a single C-channel shape that we are trying to having it right now. We have to go for a built-up C-channel or built-up sections where the load-carrying capacity can be tremendously increased. But again, there is a lack of data. There is lack of research. There is lack of data. My umpteen attempts to Ministry of Steel over several years have gone into deaf ears. My umpteen attempts over several years to talk to people in BIS also have not been. Include even DST, when we write proposals, they don't give proper importance. So the lack of funding is a major issue. So there should be some amount of effort that should come from the agencies to come forward and collaborate and work and have a scientific understanding of what is the behavior before we put our Indian citizens in a house that we know that we have constructed it adequately and properly. So that is one part of the puzzle. The other part of the puzzle that I also wanted to talk about is that our country is becoming more and more seismic, which means that in 1960s, if you look at it, we had size zone 0, zone 1, zone 2, up to zone 5. Okay, so 6 different zones were there. And every 5 years or 10 years, we reduced one zone, and now we have only 3 zones, zone 3, 4, and 5, which means that our country is becoming more and more seismic. While at the same time, okay, we have a unique landscape where we have 66 wind-prone districts in the entire peninsular India, and the 3 most important real estate pieces are Kolkata, Chennai, and Mumbai are all in coastal cities where it is subjected to extreme amount of winds, which is seasonal. No amount of effort has been taken to study this wind effect seriously, especially for structures that are located in the coastline. So this is a recurring phenomenon, and I think that resources should also be devoted for extreme events such as wind and earthquake to have an understanding. Where we have wind, we don't have earthquake. Okay, earthquake is typically in the places like northeastern states where wind is not an issue, or in northern part of Kashmir, whereas wind is in the 7,500 kilometers of coastal peninsula, right, starting from Gujarat, coming down to Kanyakumari, to the right to Kolkata, which is the highest wind speed of 52 meters per second. So these 2 factors are also equally important. So studying the behavior, understanding the behavior of cold form steel, have a fundamental understanding with the scientific background, developing data, turning the data into guidelines. Guidelines can later be codified in the form of a codal provision, which is IS 801, is the need of the hour. Okay, so trying to take shortcuts in these areas will only have wreak havoc, in my opinion. So cold form steel is a fantastic material. It's boon, it's wonderful. We have sustainable material. It promotes what is known as circular economy, where we can take the material after 30 or 40 years and then recycle it or reuse it, or the salvage value will be very, very high. So in all aspects, the building time takes only 3 to 4 days. Once you put the concrete foundation, it only takes 2 to 3 days. All you need is a screw gun and erection. Me being at Hyderabad, we are surrounded by a lot of steel industries here, Pennar and Kirby, where they regularly ship cold form steel to places like Assam, where they produce Anganwadis. So a truck contains 7 Anganwadis worth of steel material. They goes there. It is more like a do it yourself. They open the bundle they use just like a jigsaw puzzle. They use it using a screw gun and a self-tapping screw. They can actually make the house within 2 to 3 days, which is fantastic. Everything is fine because steel as a material is extremely ductile, so it is very good against seismic, and hence the need for using it at Assam. Not to mention that it is very difficult to make any type of concrete ingredients taking at remote places. And coal farm steel is extremely good. For example, the Indian Institute of Technology at Mandi, IIT Mandi, for example, has extensively used coal farm steel for their hostel blocks. So coal farm steel is a very reliable material, but what is need of the hour is to have a fundamental understanding of the coal farm steel rather than jump and take shortcuts and putting our Indian citizens at peril. With this, I would like to pause for a minute, and if there is any questions, we can take, or I can join the panel discussion.
Thank you so much, Professor Madhavan. Shriyal, do we have any questions?
I suggest if we have questions, we take them at the end of the session. So maybe you just continue with the session now.
Yes. So now I come to Mr. Ashok Bhardwaj. Mr. Bhardwaj, actually one of the reasons I've put you now instead of at the beginning, because I was completely aware that, Anish and Professor Madhavan are going to raise questions which you will be able to answer, especially the behavior of the cold form. And I think that, that is the reason why we have such little development of the cold form producers in India, because it's very difficult to understand this behavior, which is different from that of a hot rolled, people who are coming from hot rolled backgrounds. So, Mr. Bhardwaj, please tell us more about your machines and cold form and whether this is actually also a 3D machine or not.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Yeah, I would also like to thank the First Construction Council and Pratap Padode for having called me for this this esteemed program. Yeah, so I mean, I'll try to answer the questions. I'm in contact with Professor Madhavan and Anish from time to time, so we keep discussing these issues. But to start with, we have been put under the topic of re-engineering, which means that we need to redesign our business processes and systems and organizations and all that. So and this will help us to achieve better performance, in the market. So this is, I would say, very relevant for LGSF today, because with LGSF we will be able to address issues related to getting into the new normal, which is post-pandemic. And in my presentation, I'll be telling you about certain things, why today LGSF is very relevant for construction, mass housing, residential, commercials, and all that. Indian construction market, of course, we all know, is almost $550 billion today. It's likely to touch $1 trillion by 2025, out of the $5 trillion that we are likely to achieve for the whole country. It's today 11 to 12% of the GDP and employs 5 crore people. So it is only next, construction as an industry is only next to agriculture in the country. Now, what is LGSF? If I may just spend a few seconds. LGSF is, of course, a modular and efficient construction method where primarily galvanized and high tensile cold form steels are used to form the skeletal structure of the buildings. Yeah, it is definitely not a new technology. Like Anish said, it is 15 years old in India. Globally, it is much more older. So it's only that in India it's not become it's not caught on yet. In the past 3 years, of course, the number of machines that are there in India have more than tripled. Today, there are 30 LGSF machines in the country. So I would say we have seen an exponential growth in the last 3 years, and we hope that this will move forward. Now, what are the advantages of LGSF construction? Briefly, to tell you, of course, as Professor Madhavan said, sand and sand and water. It doesn't use much of sand and water, so we can conserve those things. It is high speed. It is green and recyclable. It gives better comfort. It has better safety in terms of fire-resistant seismic acoustic properties. It is labor-friendly. It gives a lot of precision and accuracy in the construction because the construction methodology is design-led. Okay, then it can be scaled. So if you have mass housing projects like PMAY and Housing for All, and today we also have, for the immigrants, we are talking of housing, the rental housing programs. There is Smart City Mission, Amrut, and all that. Not to mention Make in India and Atmanirbhar. So this, I would say, is an ideal technology for scaling up. It is affordable for all because it can be constructed at various price points. No, it is not only one price point. Depending on the customization and the design, it can be positioned at various price points. It is adaptable to rural and urban technologies. It is suitable for all the geoclimatic conditions. So LGSF on these criteria, I would say, is much superior to RCC today, because there was also, Mr. Maiti had mentioned the ratio of steel and cement in India is very low, 0.35, whereas globally it is more than 1. So it is high time that we start promoting LGSF and other steel-based technologies quite aggressively in the market. Now, the other issues, if I look at, is with regard to approvals. This technology today has all the approvals required. BMTPC has approved, GHTC, that is Global Housing Technology, has approved LGSF, IITs have approved, Military Engineering Services, CPWD, Delhi Development Authority, and the PMAY projects, and even Kerala mass housing projects. So these all have approved LGSF as a technology. And not only that, on the 1st of Jan of this year, our Prime Minister had inaugurated 6 lighthouse projects, mass housing lighthouse projects. And one of them was LGSF, which was seen as a very high potential construction method to move towards housing for all. The other issue, of course, is with regard to steel consumption. LGSF provides ample opportunities for increasing the steel consumption. It can go up to 72 kgs per square meter, depending on the design and the construction. It is also very much adaptable. One is you can do LGSF, that is with light gauge steel sections up to 3 or 4 storied buildings. But it is also well adaptable with HRS, that is hot rolled. It is well adaptable with RCC. So if you want to go higher, let's say 10 stories and 12 stories, LGSF still can be used in a manner which we call it as hybrid construction. Yeah, so and then the other aspect which is very important to LGSF is that it is design-led. I think Anita can probably talk more about that because the machines that we sell, for example, the Stallion machines that we sell, they have a software for architecture and structural steel, structural designs. So since it is design-led, one is the speed is higher, the time taken is less, the construction output is of high precision, there are not many wastages, there is a good amount of dimensional accuracy with LGSF construction. Of course, the quality of construction needs to be addressed, as what Anish had said. There is efficient resources utilization. The logistics are efficient if you have to go to inaccessible areas, transporting the sections, rather than transporting, the steel mix or the cement mix all over. You get better carpet area for the same amount of construction. So there are a lot of advantages that LGSF has over and above RCC. And today we can look at several applications for LGSF. Apart from the normal mass housing projects, government quarters, disaster relief projects, sports village projects. You can look at vertical extension, hotel accommodations, labor accommodation, like what happened to the migrants during the pandemic. We can have temporary or rental labor accommodation for them, solar panel structures. You have bathroom pods, kitchen pods. So the applications are quite endless with LGSF. So I certainly believe there is a great future for this technology in the country. Yeah. So for now, that's it from my side. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm coming in just for a very brief point that, as you very rightly said, this has to be design-led. I'm sure Dr. Dasgupta would also agree, and Anita would put more light on this. But the gap which the architects usually see in India, they feel, is that most of the other players, they, coming from the industrial background, they cannot provide the usual junction details and that psychology of design thinking. And because of that, the main focus, as Dr. Madhavan said, is on increasing the steel tonnage rather than efficiently optimizing the design. And that is where I think, companies like us can really help in, and Anita would put more light on this.
Yes, of course, Anish. I'm really looking forward to Miss Anita Dake. I wish we had known her earlier also for the LGFS campaign. But Anita, yeah, please do come in. I mean, this design is the key to the prospects of the steel industry, and design is the key to solving so many, our design needs, I should say, So Anita, yeah, a warm welcome to you. Kindly make your presentation.
You have to unmute, Anita. You have to unmute.
Unmute. Yeah.
And can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. So thank you very much for inviting me on this forum, and I'm really happy to interact with people from the engineering background, and it has always been a pleasure for me to work with an engineer to make our buildings more efficient and comfortable for a human being. That is the foremost aspect that any architect has in the building design, as far as I know. And so what I feel is, like, after listening to Mr. Bharadwaj, Mr. Anish, and Mr. Madhavan, like, you people have really come up with the ideal solutions that architects have been looking for in industry, in the sense to put up buildings which are which have very small footprint. But when we have this conventional methodology of RCC structures, the footprint of the building, suppose it is 1,000 square feet, then we end up losing a lot of area and built up space. So in a way, when we use these steel frame structures, or for that matter, composite ones, will definitely add value or make the spaces in a better usable volumes, I would say. And then prefabricated structure are the need of the future, in the sense, no, I wouldn't say future, it is a need of today, that we have so many redevelopment projects. And especially if you, like, I come from the city of Pune, which has a lot of Gautan areas, which are small lanes, and there are a lot of development happening in the old city area. So for such areas, if you have the conventional way of building up, it really is cumbersome for the builder to go all the way, mitigating all the traffic and things like that. So if we could have buildings made out of components, which are very small components and can be carried to the site, and it becomes a very clean and dry methodology. And also there are many other advantages of steel buildings which have been put forward very rightly by other speakers. So I don't think I should repeat that. So I would like to share one experience of mine where we had to design one small bridge for the army, which had to be carried in remote areas, and they had to like build it up across the valley of, say, it was, the distance was very short though, it was around 25 meters of span. So we made it out of a space frame structure, and the bridge could be carried on a backpack, and the load was shared by soldiers on their back. So I wish we, like, this was done some 30 years back. So I wish we had these lightweight frame structures then, which could be easy to carry. So this is a wonderful material, I would say, especially for disaster management structures, or for that matter, for the military areas. And definitely it is time saving and very clean. And I would always vote for these kind of structures over concrete structures, because we have gone through a lot of hell for putting it up. And now we are putting up a new building in Chennai, which is headquarters for United India of Insurance. And it is a diagrid structure. So in that we have used these hollow pipes, and the junctions are actually made out of plates. So it's a plate form. So we have used cold forming plates in that case. And yeah, so this is what I would like to say, that really thanks for coming up with this alternative solutions in building industry. And another thing I would like to mention, that many a times we always think building up for only humans, and nobody thinks about the non-humans. And finally, we end up building a few things for them also. So like if you have things like insectoriums, or butterfly gardens, or for that matter, some aviaries, then if we have these kind of things which can span across larger areas, so even if the area is densely vegetated, without cutting much trees, we can cover it with these lightweight structures without disturbing the vegetation in that area. And it is less taxing on the environment.
Thank you, Ms. Dake. Thank you so much. Definitely, this is a green footprint, and we are looking to reduce concrete, because concrete, after all, is also mineral based. And as Professor Madhavan says, that limestone and these gypsum is not going to last forever. And also the footprint of concrete and cement is too high. I mean, the carbon footprint is too high. The pollution is too high. The dead weight of the structure is also too high to be, supported in all soil conditions. One of the things I really wanted to ask you is that I have a kind of an imagination, I would say, that, because you have a variety of, materials for the walls. This can also have bamboo boards and more local walls, and those could be climate-wise better, better insulated. And also we have the floor, in a light frame, we have the whole, provision of the floor, which we can use for, I think, central heating or cooling. I mean, if that is possible. So we would like to know a little more about, 2 to 3 minutes more about these.
Okay. So about floors, I would say, like conventionally, if you see, many times people end up making a thick solid concrete mass, which is also like adds to the heat island effect of the building, which gets heated during daytime, and then at night it starts emitting the heat. So that we can save on definitely by using this different material. And so we've also made it into a green roof, which is a steel, the aluminum steel plate. And over that we have had layers of growing medium, and it is kind of camouflaging with the rest of the area around. It's a farmhouse, so it is not an eyesore. And it has dual effect of getting camouflage and also heat insulation during the time.
Ms. Dasgupta.
Yeah, tell me, Professor Madhavan.
Yeah, I just have couple of suggestions. Actually, if you look at any steel structure, you can recycle the columns, you can recycle the beams, you can recycle many portions of it. But the one portion that you cannot and that could not be recycled is the flooring system. The flooring is typically concrete intensive, whereas all other structural components are steel intensive. So at IIT Hyderabad, we have come up with a unique solution where we can introduce a recyclable flooring system, where the floors can be recycled after 30 years. So all we need to do is come up with a composite flooring system where the entire flooring system can be bolted. And then after 30 years of design life, you can remove the bolts and you can store that entire flooring system. And the only thing that you need to do is to just add new bolts to the new system, and we can reuse the entire flooring system again. So the objective was to introduce sustainability in every possible way. So the flooring was a major obstruction, and that actually has been solved recently. One PhD student have graduated and has come up with a fantastic solution. We are still carrying out research in terms of vibration and also for seismic resistance before we can, introduce it to the larger audience of Indian citizens. That is one thing. Another thing I also wanted to talk or share while Ms. Anita was talking about few things is that one most important critical thing that as engineers that we do not do in a construction site is to measure or record the number of accidents that happen due to construction. I worked in US for a long period of time, almost 7 years. I'm a licensed professional engineer there. And one of the goals of my organization is called Target Zero. Basically, your ability is based on, or your performance is also judged based on your designs that does not have any kind of accidents. And one of the prime causes for accidents is the movement of the construction vehicle that goes in and out of the construction. So far in India, they have not made any honest attempt on recording the accidents that happen at construction site. And it is more like a taboo to record all these things and to show, because it puts few things in bad light. And the primary reason is the movement of the trucks in and out. And that is mainly because you have to transport cement, you have to transport sand, you have to transport coarse aggregate, which creates by inherently chaos at a construction site, not to mention the sound pollution, the noise pollution, or the pollution dust happens. Yeah. And one interesting thing also is that, people talk about asbestosis. What is asbestosis? People inhaling that small powdered asbestos sheet, and then they get sick and they get lung infection. But in fact, many people in India actually die out of inhaling cement for a longer period of time, because they become ineffective after 10 years. Especially the poor guy who's emptying the cement bag, right? The small 40, 50 cement bags, he's continuously emptying for 4 or 5 years. The small, fine, glandular metal goes inside, and then he's ineffective after 5 to 10 years. These are things that we don't record. So the health conditions are absolutely gruesome when it comes to concrete intensive structures. So it's time that we take care of our own people. It's time that we move from a construction to a dry-based construction.
Yeah, can I add a point, madam?
Yeah, of course.
One aspect about LGSF, if you look at, it is like post-COVID embracing a new normal, because LGSF can provide very new employment opportunities. I mean, of course, training and skill development is required, but in the construction world, it can offer very new employment opportunities like structural engineers, detailers, machine operators, assemblers, site erectors, quality inspectors, technology trainers, and even software guys. A lot of software guys can find employment in the construction sector.
That's true.
If you get into, or if you popularize and make LGSF more prevalent in construction,
Sure. So we have to come up with a plan, actually, a concrete plan by which we have to popularize the LGFS in construction.
I mean, it should be a steel plan.
Yeah.
Madam, that was a pun.
I know. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
It is as a designer or as an architect, I always came across clients who interpret steel structures as, like, oh, it looks like some industrial steel. This they have to come out, and maybe steel industry could suggest some coatings or some finishes on the steel surfaces, which can really make a person feel very cozy, warm, and comfortable, and not cold and very hard surface.
Yeah, but but I think that work you and Anish will have to do, because it's up to you to come up with nice non-concrete wall structures, and which will look very nice. I think bamboo boards look absolutely fantastic, and so do pasted boards with thermal wool inside. So I think glass wool or laminates, they look very nice. So that's your area.
I think one aspect that might interest Anita is we received an inquiry where the person said he wanted a house for himself, of course, but he said after every year or every 2 years he would like to change the cladding to give it a different look, and that is very much like you are changing your dress, and if you can afford it, you can do it. And it is with LGSF you can do this very easily and very efficient, whereas with RCC you may have to demolish the whole building and come up with a new one, because you have options of form tiles, you have options of fiber cement board, you have ferro cement. There are so many options for cladding today. You can even have steel sheets for cladding. So
very, very rightly said.
He can change the look of the house in every interval that he can afford.
Yeah. And this also could be achieved with some dynamic facades, like you can have automation in that, and as you said rightly, can be employed.
Yes, that is exactly what I was also meaning, that a lot of things can be done. I mean, especially glass, changing the shades and changing the temperature. I think it's an enormous possibility there.
In fact, there are many other alternatives to claddings and finishes in these buildings that we have a very ready research of. We already have the complete research that we have done over the previous 15 years, and we'll be glad to help the architects and as Anita was mentioning as well, because what the customers they usually ask us when they are making a decision, they always ask us for a lot of alternatives, and then they would like to choose it. If we give them very standard and brief options, then usually the decisions are not taken so quickly and satisfactorily. So I think yes, that helps.
We'll work on this systematically. We will put up a plan in action. And so I think, Shriali, are there any questions? I think there's some questions. Himanshu Biala, he has asked a question that how the LGFS would compare with the RCC in seismic structures. Then Rushali herself has a question. Yes. You can. I think any one of you can answer Himanshu Biala's question. How does RCC compare? I mean, how does cold form steel compare to RCC structures under seismic conditions?
Yeah, I can give an important comparison point that in LGSF you don't have something like columns and beams. It is like a load-bearing wall. All the load doesn't come on the column. It comes on the load-bearing wall. So there is a very even distribution of load in a LGSF building compared to that of a RCC building, which is one of the major advantages that LGSF offers, and which also makes it more seismic resistant, more fire resistant, and there are so many other properties that Professor Madhavan talked about that come because of this main property of LGSF.
One thing I would like to add to what Mr. Bharadwaj had said is that when we talk about speed, it's always a function of mass. So force is mass multiplied by acceleration. Okay, acceleration is God-given. We cannot predict what is the acceleration, but one thing that we have in our control is the mass of the structure. So if we control the mass to be lighter, so when we multiply by a bigger force or a smaller force, the acceleration, the load carrying amount of lateral force that the structure would experience would heavily come down. Concrete by nature is mass intensive. Okay, so when it is mass intensive, it has a tendency to attract a lot of seismic forces. Okay, hence concrete structure would have difficulty because of large amount of lateral forces that it attracts because force is mass multiplied by acceleration. Another thing is concrete by nature is brittle. Even when people say it is ductile, it is simply because the steel rods that are inserted inside the reinforced concrete that provides ductility. So basically it is a brittle structure. So it is like a glass that will quickly break, whereas steel is extremely ductile, and not to mention that cold form steel is very light, and hence the amount of load that is being attracted because of the lower mass will be low, and hence you have both advantages. One is the lower lateral force that you are attracting because of your lighter structure, and also the steel by itself, by the DNA of the steel is such that it is more ductile. So it's a win-win situation for both of us. But bigger one
contribute in that, then very rightly said by Ashok and Dr. Madhavan. Apart from that, the user perspective is that when you're living in a building or you're working in a building, and if an earthquake comes, so usually the users are concerned with the life and the safety of their family members or their colleagues, for that matter. And in such scenarios, a concrete structure may crack or break, or a brick wall may fall off. However, in LGSF and cold form steel buildings, they vibrate and come back to position with very lightweight walls. So the possibility of damage to life and the safety of the users is very, very less in this. So this also contributes.
I will just add one more question here that we've received, similar to what Mr. Chopra was just sharing, that to what extent can disaster requirements be addressed with steel, and any new areas in housing, especially if we look at the coastal areas where steel or engineered steel can play a role to support structures?
So in disaster management as well as in coastal areas, so these are two different scenarios, of course, not linked completely. So in terms of disaster management, yes, one cold form steel can save a disaster from happening in terms of the building damage and the life of the people in it. Second thing is that in case there's a disaster and one needs to create temporary structures, so very, very quickly and in an organized manner, these structures, this technology can be used. Cold form steel, LGSF, hybrid steel buildings can be used in such scenarios in disaster management. And the third thing is in the coastal areas is of high moisture areas. And that is where the zinc plus aluminum coating over the steel, which is used in this technology, is going to be of tremendous help because it is rust resistant. So till a larger extent, it resists the rust, which usually happens, as Dr. Madhavan was saying, in the coastal areas as well. And the other dignitary from the stainless steel industry was also saying the same thing. That inside the TMT bars, they usually rust over a period of time because of the moisture. But cold form steel does not, it resists rust over a period of time. And it is covered with a lot of other materials. So it's not exposed as well. So it's a double benefit in this technology.
Also, we have a question on LGS structure and wall. How is it bonded?
LGF structure and wall, actually, basically, after the foundation is done, they put a track And the track is anchored to the foundation by means of some kind of bolts which are linked, and that the bolts flare. And then on top of that, prefabricated wall assembly comes in picture, and it sits exactly on top of the track. And then on top of the track, and once that wall is there, then you close the wall by means of another C channel, inverted C channel that you put on top. And that is exactly what Mr. Bharadwaj was saying, that the load is distributed uniformly. So unlike the concentrated load, the load is actually, if you design it for a load-bearing wall, the load will be actually distributed uniformly. So the wall consists of an external sheathing as well as an internal sheathing. The external sheathing can be 2 ply boards, or it can be cement boards. Basically, it has 2 different thickness. One is 8 mm and another is 12 mm for exterior protection against moisture, rainwater, and things like that. The interior boards are typically gypsum boards because it gives a nice, neat finish, and it is very smooth if you look at it. So this is the combination. So it is a hybrid sheathing that acts, and inside the hybrid sheathing is your C channel. The C channel is called a 2x4. The depth of the member is 4 inches and the width of the member is 2 inches. It is a lipped C channel, lipped at the top as well as the bottom. And the spacing of the screw should be anywhere from 150 mm to 300 mm. So if you put a 150 mm to 300 mm screws, the screws are called self-tapping screws. It's 1 rupee to 1.5 rupees that you can have. If you train your manpower properly, they can put the screw correctly at those locations at 150 mm spacing. And then you make the wall panel, and then you take the entire wall panel, sit it on a track that I mentioned that is attached to the foundation. On top of the track and on top of the wall, then you insert another cap of C channel on top of it, and that becomes your wall.
And we have 2 minutes to conclude this session. So I'll take one last question. That how can one switch from an existing construction to LGSF?
That is definitely possible. It's a very easy switch that can happen. And in fact, there are 2 possibilities. One that one can usually, demolish, if it's an old building, one can demolish the concrete structure, and with a very light foundation, which is at least 33% lighter, a new LGSF cold form steel building can be constructed quickly. The other is that even if you have come far off in your design and you've even put the foundation, still it is possible to design and switch from a concrete design, a brick mortar building design to an LGS design very easily, but you need an expert in design for that. And the gap between the, what is needed on ground and the architectural concept has to be filled up. And the third possibility is that over and above the existing concrete structure, brick mortar structure, one can always do a floor extension or a multiple floor extension without adding much load on the existing structure using this technology very easily and very quickly. That will in fact give a better lifetime to the existing structure as well, which is already built in concrete.
Just to add one thing, you see, when you talk of mass housing projects and various projects that are coming up today from the government for providing housing for all, the tenders have to become very much broad-based. Today the tenders and the tender terms and conditions are so much friendly for RCC that only the RCC contractors tend to quote for these tenders. So if you make it more broad-based in terms of material and construction method and technology, then the LGSF contractors will also find it friendly to quote. And not only that, if they introduce the aspect of life cycle cost, because LGSF is better on a life cycle cost basis, compared to RCC. So there LGSF can really score with regard to RCC.
And in the times to come, we hope to see that there is more usage of, this innovative material technology in the industry. Dr. Dasgupta, a last concluding statement. We are ready to close this session.
Yes, on a very lighter note, I shouldn't be making cracking such jokes here, but I was wondering if Mr. Ashok Bharadwaj, instead of trying to put the LGSF as a legitimate, thing of the project, the tenders, if we just emphasize that MCD is not going to demolish if it's an LGFS structure on unauthorized construction on our roofs, that would sell better. Actually, that is what I've done in my Calcutta house. I've added in the form of a frame. So the corporation doesn't count it actually as a structure. But anyway, I think that we have had a very, very good discussion today. I'm not really sure what the organizers think, but at least I have got enormous amount of points. And I'm sure that, both Mr. Padode and Shriyal would really make a kind of a detailed to-do list after the webinar rather than a minutes of the webinars, but we do a to-do list, and in the to-do list we make a kind of a timeline and pursue these projects wherever it is needed to be lobbying with the government, whether there's needed to be developing courses, putting them in the institutions, whether it's an awareness program or setting up prototypes. I think we need to do a kind of a to-do activity list for the entire year till we meet for another annual convocation next year. So those were my words. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Padode. Thank you, Shriyal. Thank you, participants and panelists. Thank you
so much. We have 3 minutes when we get into our Make in Steel Awards. But before that, I would like to thank all our panelists, Dr. Dasgupta, who's been our moderator for today. It has been amazing, insightful, and informative to hear all of you speak and join us for this day and for this event. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we conclude the conference with this session, but we don't call it a day. Coming up next is Make in Steel 2021 Awards, where we will recognize and reward India's fastest growing steel companies. So continue staying virtually connected and join us as we celebrate victory. The Make in Steel Forum 2021 is powered by Tata Tiscon, Platinum Partner Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Gold Partner Shyam Steel, Supporting Partners Indian Steel Association, National Highways Builders Federation, Indian Stainless Steel Development Association, Ready Mix Concrete Manufacturers Association. Our media partners, Construction World, Infrastructure Today, and Equipment India. So look forward to having all of you join us at the Make in Steel 2021 Awards. I'm sure you're very keen to know that who's been making it to the winners list. So see you there. Thank you so much for joining us all through the day, and have a good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening and a warm welcome to all of you. I am Shriyal Setumadhavan, the feature editor of Construction World, and on behalf of the First Construction Council, I am delighted that you could all join us for the Make in Steel Awards. We cannot celebrate this esteemed gathering with our industry fraternity in person, but there is absolutely nothing that could stop us from connecting with you, recognize and reward. We present to you the Make in Steel 2021 Awards online. For those of you posting on social media, do use the hashtag Make in Steel 2021. So let us begin for what you all have virtually gathered here today, the awards. Before I announce the first award for this evening, here is a corporate video from our partner, Tata Tiscon.
Let's recap a journey of ambition, trailblazing enterprise, and memorable milestones. The journey of a pioneering brand, setting standards in a market, then without organized players. Tata Tiscon started establishing itself as a credible brand with many firsts, establishing the TMT category in the process. Reliable quality, transparent pricing, brand embossing, selling by pieces, free on-site delivery, just a few examples of a groundbreaking start. The landmark campaign Atut Jod or the Unshakable Bond vividly demonstrated the brand's superior bonding with cement and gripped the consumer's mind. Post the initial phase of setting the basics right, the time was ripe for innovation and building equity. The flag bearers were Tata Tiscon 500, 500D and Tata Tiscon 6mm rebars, each a first in the category. Innovative processes like TOC replenishments and tally invoicing were rolled out to streamline supply of these products across the distribution channel, and ensure clockwork operation. The brand went further, bonding with the channel partners and their families with various engagements and co-creating new ideas in the process. What's more, Atoot Rishte, the dealer loyalty program, strengthened the brand's bonding with the dealer fraternity. Tata Tiscon also endeared itself to consumers by empathizing with their feelings around a home of their own. It moved away from communicating functional benefits and echoed the consumer sentiment of building a life without compromise. The brand got the Joy of Building campaign to further strengthen emotional connect with consumers. Homemakers don't compromise when building their dream home. Their pride in their home is unshakable. Inspired by the need to further make homes safer, we introduced the unshakably super strong and super flexible Tata Tiscon SD, which could withstand earthquakes. The brand continuously looked for a higher order of value creation, positively touching stakeholders in the ecosystem. It rolled out the Mitra program for masons. The customer service engineers engaged consumers with ready support through Ask Expert camps. What's more, to make buying Tata Tiscon a joyful experience, we introduced state-of-the-art experience zones. No wonder the process of home building and buying Tata Tiscon has become so easy and joyful. Leveraging digital, strengthening customer centricity and focusing on sustainability became the mantra for the brand in this phase. Tata Tiscon has a green credo that leaves an inspiring and sustainable mark across the system. Through its initiative of Go Green, the brand also became the first in the industry to introduce eco-friendly graphene through its GFX-coated super lanes. Embracing the advantages of digital to provide a superior consumer experience, Tata Steel Ashiana, India's first online home building platform, was launched. The brand got closer to its valuable consumers through the Golden Home Consumer Program and provided an offering like no other in the form of Tata Basera. Tata Sampurna was launched to digitize the channel, further strengthening the brand. Our last 2 decades have seen fame and glory through our many laurels, pioneering launches and the pride of being the super brand 5 times in a row in the category. We have celebrated the joy of building, thrived in scaling expectations, created benchmarks, and held the industry with innovation and perseverance. As we journey forward with a will of steel, we believe no terrain is too rugged, no mountain too steep, no sky too high, and no horizon is too far.
We will start with the fastest growing steel company in the small category. And the award for India's fastest growing steel company in the small category goes to Kirloskar Ferrous Industries. KFIL has manufacturing facilities in Kopal and Solapur. The company was successful in selling all the pig iron produced during FY 2020. It posted a top line of 1849.66 crore and PAT of 112.37 crore. Congratulations, and we have Mr. M.G. Nagraj, the Senior Vice President of the company, sharing a few words with us.
Greetings for the day. This is Nagraj MG from Kirloskar Ferrous Industries Limited. We have our plants located at Chitradurga and Koppal districts in Karnataka. We are in this business for the last 27 years. Our plant is equipped with the latest state-of-the-art technology. We are of the belief that technology alone is not enough to provide a best workplace. The one attributable factor that led to our success is our strong belief in Gamba, that is the shop floor. Our team strongly believes that the shop floor is the place where value is created. A very strong committed team which has adopted 5S, TPM, and we also follow the CII Business Excellence model, and we have won the Platinum Award for this year. On behalf of Kirloskar Ferrous Industries Limited, I would like to thank the Make in Steel Forum for awarding our company for being the fast growing steel company. Thank you one and all. Jai Hind.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you a video from our platinum partner, Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Thank you, Mr. Nagraj. Moving on to the next category of awards. India's fastest growing steel companies in the large category. So the award for the second fastest growing steel company in the large category goes to Jindal Steel and Power Limited. JSPL has been continuously scaling its capacity utilization and efficiency to capture opportunities. Operationally, on a consolidated basis, the group achieved its highest sales and posted its highest ever steel production. JSPL's consolidated revenue for FY20 stood at 36917.48 crore. Congratulations, and may I request Mr. V.R. Sharma, the Managing Director of the company, to share a few words with us.
Thanks to First Construction Council for giving award to JSPL as a fastest growing company in steel sector. We value this award, and the company has been doing extremely well even during pandemic. Perhaps we are the fastest growing steel company in the world, not only in India. We were at a 6.5 million ton production last year. We will be doing close to 7.5 million ton production and sales in the current financial year. So if we see this particular growth, then our growth will be more than 15% in terms of quantity as well as sales. Not many companies in the world, they could do this during pandemic time when the entire country and entire world was struggling as to how to survive. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, and congratulations once again. Before I announce our final award for this evening, India's fastest growing steel company in the large category, here is a corporate video from our partner, Shyam Steel.
क्या ऑर्डर करूं? Dumplings, pasta.
ऑर्डर कुछ भी?
ओके, ऑर्डर कुछ भी.
छोले भटूरे?
तुम्हारे ऑल टाइम फेवरेट, वो भी रजौरी गार्डन से.
ओहो, वैसे कुछ चीजें ना हमेशा के लिए.
जैसे हम.
और हमारा घर.
यस. इसीलिए हमने अपना घर बनाया श्याम स्टील फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग TMT बार से.
श्याम स्टील फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग TMT बार.
फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग मतलब?
हमेशा के लिए स्ट्रॉन्ग.
बंजी जंपिंग, ट्रैकिंग.
बीच पर चिल करते हैं.
यार, थोड़ा एडवेंचरस बनो.
थोड़ा फ्लेक्सिबल बनो.
बाय. I'll go. You chill.
मेरा एडवेंचर मुझे छोड़ के जाएगा.
Fine. 2 दिन ट्रैकिंग, 5 दिन चिल. ओके? रिलेशनशिप हो या घर, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी से ही बनता है स्ट्रॉन्ग.
श्याम स्टील फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग TMT बार.
फ्लेक्सी स्ट्रॉन्ग मतलब?
हमेशा के लिए स्ट्रॉन्ग.
Ladies and gentlemen, we now present to you the last award for this evening. The award for India's fastest growing steel company in the large category goes to Tata Steel. With 20.60 MTPA capacity in India, Tata Steel is aiming for 25 MTPA by 2025. Currently, the world's second most geographically diversified steel producer, it is one of the few steel operations that are fully integrated, from mining to the manufacturing and marketing of finished products. Today, it operates in 26 countries with a commercial presence in over 50 countries. Requesting Mr. Sanjay Sani, Chief Marketing and Sales Branded Products at Tata Steel, to share a few words with us on this victory.
On behalf of Tata Steel, I would like to thank First Construction Council for recognizing Tata Steel for being the fastest growing steel company in the large category at the 4th Make in Steel Forum on 24th February. Thank you so much for this award. I take this opportunity to also thank Mr. Pratap Padode for the excellent work which First Construction Council is doing in promoting good construction practices across India. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Sani, and hearty congratulations. As we come to the end of this great day, on behalf of First Construction Council, I would like to thank our partners. This event has been powered by Tata Tiscon, Platinum Partner, Jindal Steel and Power Limited, Gold Partner, Shyam Steel, Supporting Partners, Indian Steel Association, National Highways Builders Federation, Indian Stainless Steel Development Association and Ready Mix Concrete Manufacturers Association. Media partners, Construction World, Infrastructure Today and Equipment India. I would also like to thank our panelists, winners and the viewers for your support and presence at the Make in Steel Forum 2021. Kudos to our dedicated team for putting this event together. As we come to the end of this evening, here's looking forward to a great year for the industry. Thank you once again and have a great evening.